Some wanted breeders. Others were clearly searching for amusement. Celeste kept her gaze fixed on the floor. Lot 17, the auctioneer's voice cracked through the hall. Female Omega, 23 years old, formerly of Silver Pine Pack, no visible scarring, certified fertile by the king's physicians. A hand seized Celeste beneath the jaw and forced her head upward. The alpha examining her wore the insignia of a minor Eastern lord. His eyes moved over her face with the detached impatience of a man studying an unimpressive horse. Plain, he said. Then he released her. Next. The word struck harder than it should have. Plain. Celeste had heard it since childhood, from the prettier Omegas who laughed behind her back, from the Betas who noticed her golden-haired sister Priscilla and looked through Celeste as if she were part of the wall. Even her mother had sometimes sighed while brushing Celeste's ordinary brown hair, as though beauty were a blessing the moon goddess had forgotten to give her. But in the world Nick Skinner had created, being plain had saved Celeste's life. Beauty drew attention. Detention brought ownership. When the Alpha King's army swept through the territories, pack after pack fell beneath them. Every Omega they found was seized and registered as property of the crown. Priscilla, radiant and impossible to overlook, had been taken during the first week. Celeste had survived for 3 months. She hid in root cellars and abandoned attics. She rubbed ash into her hair, tore her clothes, and learned how to make soldiers' eyes slide past her. She became forgettable on purpose, until yesterday. A Beta guard had caught her stealing bread from the kitchen of a burned pack house. Now she stood in chains, waiting to learn which Alpha had enough coin to purchase her life. "The king is coming," someone whispered. The words moved through the line like a shiver. Celeste's heart stumbled. She had never seen Alpha King Nick Skinner. Few wolves outside his court had, but every pack knew the stories. He had challenged the previous king to ritual combat and torn out the ruler's throat before the old Alpha could complete his shift. He had dismantled the ancient pack system, declared all Omegas property of the crown, and executed every Alpha who refused to kneel. Entire pack houses had burned because of him. Families had died behind barred doors. Silver Pine had been one of them. The crowd divided without command, and then Nick Skinner entered. He was not the wild, blood-covered beast Celeste had imagined. That made him more terrifying. He stood well over 6 feet, built with the hard precision of a weapon. Black tactical clothing fitted his broad frame, every strap and polished buckle arranged with military exactness. His dark hair was cut short. His jaw was sharp. His face was controlled, handsome in a cold and merciless way. But his presence was what forced every wolf in the room to bow. Power rolled from him in silent waves. Alphas lowered their eyes. Betas stepped back. Even the auctioneer seemed to forget how to breathe. Nick's gaze moved along the platform, pale silver blue eyes. Winter trapped beneath ice. They passed Lot 15, then Lot 16. Then they found Celeste. The world broke open. A golden thread snapped into place between their souls with such force that Celeste nearly fell. Heat tore through her chest. Her silent wolf surged awake, clawing toward the surface with a cry of desperate recognition. Mate. The word did not come from thought. It came from bone. Blood. Instinct. Fated mate. The moon goddess's most sacred promise, and her cruelest joke. Every wolf grew up hearing the legends. A fated mate was the single soul created to understand you completely, the one being you were meant to protect, love, and choose above all others. A bond forged beyond mortal law, stronger than duty, distance, or death. But no legend had ever warned Celeste what to do when destiny bound her to a monster. Nick's nostrils flared. Recognition flashed across his face. For one heartbeat, his control cracked. Then fury replaced it. He crossed the distance in 3 strides. His hand closed around Celeste's chin with bruising strength, forcing her face toward the light. His gaze searched hers as though he could intimidate fate itself into admitting a mistake. "Her," he said. The auctioneer swallowed. Your Majesty, Lot 17 has not completed a full evaluation. There are finer candidates among the premium. Did I stutter? Nick's voice dropped into a deadly softness. The entire hall froze. I said, I will take her. His eyes never left Celeste. Remove the chains. The silver cuffs unlocked and fell to the platform. Relief struck first, then the bond. Without the silver suppressing her, Celeste's wolf lunged toward Nick with starving devotion. It wanted his scent, his touch, his protection. It wanted to press close to the very man Celeste hated most. Celeste slammed the creature back behind her mental walls. No, she would not surrender because the moon goddess had chosen badly. She would not allow instinct to make her weak before the wolf who had destroyed everything she loved. Nick's eyes narrowed. He could feel her refusal. His thumb remained beneath her chin, and every point of contact sent unwanted sparks along her skin. The bond was designed to reward closeness. Each second he touched her made her body more aware of him, more responsive to him, less obedient to reason. "What is your name?" he demanded. She considered lying. One look into those frozen eyes ended the thought. "Celeste?" she whispered. Celeste Anderson of Silver Pine Pack. Something shifted in Nick's expression. Not surprise, not compassion, recognition. He knew the name of her fallen pack. Well, Celeste Anderson. His thumb brushed across her lower lip. The gesture was slow, possessive, and edged with threat. It appears the moon goddess has a vicious sense of humor. He leaned closer. Do you know what happens to Omegas who become the Alpha King's property? Fear tightened around her throat, but Celeste forced herself to hold his gaze. I have heard the stories, Alpha King. Then you know most do not survive their first week in my chambers. His smile was silk wrapped around a blade. But you are not most Omegas, are you? You are my fated mate. The one wolf in this realm supposedly created to be perfect for me. He released her and turned toward the watching court. So let us make this interesting. The auction hall became utterly silent. Nick spoke with the casual authority of a ruler who had never been denied anything. This Omega will spend 3 nights in my chambers. A shocked murmur spread through the crowd. If she remains unbroken until dawn on the 4th morning, I will grant her freedom. A full royal pardon. Her Omega status will be erased from the registry, and she will receive safe passage to any territory willing to take her. Celeste could not breathe. Freedom. A word Omegas no longer dared whisper. Then Nick looked back at her. His smile became predatory. But if she breaks before the 3rd night ends, she becomes my permanent property. My servant, my plaything, mine for as long as I decide to keep her alive, the hall erupted. Celeste's knees weakened beneath her. This was worse than being purchased. Nick was not merely claiming her body. He was turning her resistance into a public spectacle and her survival into entertainment. Do we have an agreement, little Omega? He extended one hand, palm upward, imitating the courtesy of a gentleman. 3 nights of hell, or a lifetime of it. Choose, Celeste stared at his hand. She could refuse. She could spit in his face and accept whatever death followed. That might be cleaner, faster, kinder than giving the Alpha King 3 nights to discover every weakness she possessed. Then she saw Priscilla in her mind, golden hair tangled as soldiers dragged her away. She saw the other Omegas around her, wrists burned beneath silver, waiting to be sold to wolves who considered them disposable. And she heard her mother's final command before the soldiers separated them. Survive, Celeste. No matter what it costs, survive. 3 nights, 72 hours between slavery and freedom. Celeste had survived by becoming invisible, by swallowing fear, by making herself so unremarkable that danger overlooked her. Perhaps she could endure 3 more nights the same way. Perhaps even the Alpha King's cruelty could pass over someone the world considered insignificant. She placed her hand in his. Nick's fingers closed with crushing strength. The fated bond exploded between them, so intense that Celeste gasped. He pulled her against his body before she could recover. She could see tiny flecks of gold hidden inside his silver blue eyes. Smell winter pine, gunpowder, and something darker beneath both. Feel the heat of him through layers of cloth. Brave little thing, he murmured beside her ear. Or perhaps merely foolish. His hand settled at the base of her spine. We will discover which. His breath warmed the sensitive skin of her neck. The first night begins at sunset. Pray to the goddess who cursed us both, Celeste. She may be the only one willing to show you mercy. Nick turned and pulled her from the platform. The crowd separated in silence. Celeste saw pity in some faces, fascination in others. They all knew the rumors surrounding the king's chambers. They had heard screams pass through the citadel walls. They had watched broken omegas carried away at dawn. No one expected her to return unchanged. Nick led her through corridors of white marble. Guards lowered their eyes. Servants retreated into doorways. Celeste felt the meaning of her choice settle across her shoulders like chains heavier than silver. She had made a bargain with the devil. Worse. She had made it with her fated mate. They stopped before enormous double doors carved with wolves in the middle of a hunt, jaws open, fangs frozen in eternal snarls. Nick pushed them apart. Beyond them lay the largest bedchamber Celeste had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the conquered territories. Pale winter light spilled across white marble floors, making them gleam like polished bone. A massive four-poster bed stood in the center of the room, covered in untouched black silk. Nick released her hand and crossed to a cabinet. He poured 2 fingers of whiskey, swallowed them in one motion, then filled the glass again. Only then did he face her. "Remove your dress." The command was calm. That calmness terrified her more than anger would have. Celeste's hands shook as they found the torn hem. This was the first humiliation, the beginning of whatever he had designed to grind away her pride before he ever laid a hand on her. Her wolf whimpered inside her, caught between fear and the instinct to submit to its mate. Celeste lifted the dress to her thighs. "Stop!" She froze. Nick crossed the room and seized both wrists, pulling her hands away from the fabric. "Did you truly believe it would be that simple?" he asked. "That I would take you like some nameless omega from the breeding pens?" He released her. "The first night's test is not what you imagined." Nick pointed toward a large leather chair beside the fireplace. "I will sit there." Then he indicated the space where Celeste stood. "You will remain exactly here." His eyes darkened with cruel anticipation. "And we will discover how long you can endure the bond before you beg me to touch you." Celeste's stomach dropped. He was not going to overpower her. He was going to let fate do it for him. A fated bond demanded closeness. Prolonged separation could cause phantom pain, breathless panic, delirium, and an overwhelming hunger for contact. Mates had been known to lose their minds when kept apart. Nick settled into the leather chair with his whiskey. He looked entirely at ease. "The sun sets in 4 hours," he said. "If you remain conscious and unbroken until dawn, you will survive the first night." His gaze swept slowly over her. "But understand this, little Omega, resistance does not weaken the bond." His mouth curved. "It feeds it." The fire cracked behind him. "Every minute you deny your wolf will feel longer than the last. By midnight, you will be in agony. By 3 in the morning, you will be willing to crawl over broken glass for the privilege of touching my hand." He leaned back, one ankle resting over his knee, completely certain of the outcome. "So let us begin." His silver blue eyes held hers. "Let us see how strong your will remains when your own body becomes the enemy." Chapter 2. The first night's torment. The first hour was survivable. Barely. Celeste remained where Nick had ordered her to stand, 3 feet from the enormous bed. Her fingers were locked into fists, nails biting into her palms. She counted every breath, in through her nose, out through her mouth. Again. Again. Anything to ignore the wolf pacing inside her mind. Every time Celeste's gaze drifted toward the Alpha King, the creature whimpered and pressed against her mental barriers. Nick had not moved from the leather chair. He had poured another whiskey and opened a stack of documents, signing page after page with calm efficiency. Execution orders, Celeste imagined. New decrees. New ways to strip Omegas of whatever dignity remained to them. He did not look at her. He did not speak. He treated her as though she were another object placed inside his chamber for convenience. Somehow, his indifference made the bond worse. It vibrated between them like a taut string. With each passing minute, the pull inside Celeste's chest grew stronger. Her body wanted her to cross the room. Her wolf wanted to press against him, breathe him in, and claim the safety destiny insisted he should provide. Her skin began to feel too tight. Her fingers ached to touch. Every breath carried his scent deeper into her lungs. Winter pine, gunpowder, and raw alpha power. Just 3 steps, her wolf begged. He is ours. He is supposed to protect us. Celeste tightened her jaw. The moon goddess might have designed fated mates to balance one another, light against darkness, strength beside weakness. But perhaps the goddess sometimes bound a predator to its prey simply to see which instinct would win. By the second hour, discomfort became pain. It began beneath Celeste's ribs as an empty ache no breath could fill. Then it spread through her chest and into her limbs. Her wolf stopped pacing and began clawing at the walls Celeste had built around her. Images flooded her mind without permission. Nick's hands on her skin, his body close enough to silence the agony, the unbearable relief of surrender. The bond wanted completion, skin against skin, soul against soul. It wanted them to finish what fate had begun the instant their eyes met. Nick turned a page, signed another order. "You are trembling," he observed. His voice cut through the silence like a knife. He still did not look up. That is the bond beginning to work. At present, it is merely uncomfortable. He placed his signature at the bottom of another document. In another hour, it will hurt. Only then did he raise his gaze. His silver blue eyes found hers with terrifying precision. By midnight, you will understand why some separated mates choose death rather than endure the distance. Celeste bit through her lower lip. Blood filled her mouth with the taste of copper. The sharp physical pain gave her something real to hold on to, something that belonged to her rather than the bond. "I have survived worse than discomfort, Alpha King." Nick set down his glass. "Have you?" He rose with smooth, controlled grace. He did not approach her. That would have offered relief. Instead, he moved around the edge of the room while maintaining the same cruel distance, forcing Celeste to follow him with her eyes like prey tracking a circling wolf. "Tell me, Celeste Anderson of Silver Pine Pack, what is the worst thing you have survived?" She knew better than to answer. Every truth she gave him could become a weapon. But the bond had begun to blur the edges of her thoughts. Before she could stop herself, the memory escaped. "I watched your soldiers burn my pack house while my father was still inside." Nick stopped. Celeste's voice became flat, stripped of everything except pain. "He was our beta, too old to fight, too proud to run. Your men barred the doors and set the building on fire while the entire pack watched." Her throat tightened. "I heard him scream for 3 minutes before the smoke silenced him." "The Silver Pine Beta," Nick said. Recognition entered his expression. "Harold Anderson." He spat in my general's face when offered surrender. He resumed walking. "Your father died because he chose pride over survival. That was not cruelty." Nick glanced at her. "It was natural selection." Rage burned through Celeste so violently that, for one blessed moment, it drowned out the bond. "Natural selection?" Her voice rose. "You slaughtered hundreds of wolves because they refused your tyranny. You enslaved every Omega in the territories. You created a world where strength is law and anyone weaker than you becomes property." She no longer cared whether the words killed her. "You are not an Alpha King. You are a disease wearing a crown." The silence that followed was lethal. Nick became perfectly still. Then, to Celeste's disbelief, he smiled. Not the cold curve he used to threaten. A real smile. Sharp, pleased, almost exhilarated. "There you are," he murmured. "The wolf beneath all that fear. He crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped directly before her. Heat rolled from his body. The bond screamed for her to close the final inches. Her hands shook with the effort not to reach for him. "Do you want to know why I destroyed the old pack system?" he asked softly. "Why I tore apart everything our ancestors called sacred?" He leaned toward her ear. "Because it was already rotten." His breath moved across her skin. "Alphas treated omegas as breeding animals while preaching honor, protection, and tradition." Then his voice lowered further. "And because your precious father personally sold 17 omegas from Silver Pine to a trafficking ring in the Southern Territories to pay his gambling debts." Celeste's mind went blank. Nick drew back enough to watch the shock enter her eyes. "Did you know that?" he asked. "Did you know the man you mourn sacrificed members of his own pack to save himself?" "You are lying." The denial came instantly. "Am I?" Nick held her gaze. "Ask your wolf." His expression was merciless. "The fated bond does not allow us to lie to one another. You can feel the truth, Celeste, regardless of how desperately you wish to reject it. And she could. That was the horror. The bond carried his certainty into her like a physical weight. Her father had gambled. Everyone in Silver Pine had known that. But selling omegas, sending his own people into bondage, Celeste's memory of him cracked down the middle. "The old world was not paradise," Nick said. His voice had become quiet, almost gentle. "I did not destroy something pure. I burned away a beautiful lie and exposed what had always been beneath it." He stepped away. The sudden distance tore through Celeste's chest. Her wolf howled in protest. "At least my cruelty is honest," Nick continued. "In my realm, omegas know where they stand. There are no false vows of protection, no pretty speeches about duty, only power and submission." He returned to the chair. "But you were right about one thing." Nick lifted his glass. "I am a monster," he drank without looking away from her. "I have done terrible things to gain this throne, and I will do worse to keep it. The difference between me and the rulers before me is that I do not hide behind virtue." His eyes moved to the clock. 3 hours until midnight, then he looked back at her trembling body. "You are performing better than expected." Most omegas would already be sobbing. Celeste could barely stand. The pain had reached her bones. It felt as if something inside her was trying to tear every joint apart and pull the pieces toward Nick. Her wolf no longer pleaded with words. It howled. Every cell in Celeste's body demanded that she cross the room, kneel before him, and beg for the touch that would end the suffering. But if she surrendered now, she would never survive what followed. Freedom was worth pain. Freedom was worth everything. The 3rd hour became hell. Thought dissolved. Time lost meaning. There was only the bond, and the part of Celeste that refused to obey it. Sweat ran down her face despite the cold room. Her hands throbbed from remaining clenched. The ache transformed into liquid fire racing through her nerves. Nick had abandoned his documents. Now he watched her openly. Every small movement he made became another form of torment. When he crossed one leg over the other, the bond flared. When he shifted in the chair, her wolf surged. When he rested his chin against his knuckles, Celeste's body remembered the touch of those fingers against her face. "You are bleeding," he said. Celeste tasted blood again. "Your lip. You have bitten through it." She did not answer. Pain she chose was easier than pain forced upon her. "I tested an omega last year," Nick said conversationally. "She was not my fated mate. Those bonds are rare enough that most wolves die without finding theirs." He swirled the whiskey in his glass. "She was beautiful, carefully trained. She spent 3 months in my bed before I became bored and sold her to a Western beta." His gaze sharpened. "She lasted 45 minutes during this test. Celeste had endured 3 hours. Do you know the cruelest part?" Nick asked. "It is not the pain. Pain is simple. The body understands pain." He leaned forward. "The cruelest part is knowing it would stop instantly if you surrendered. One touch, One word. That is all, his smile returned. But your pride will not allow it, will it? You would rather suffer than give me the satisfaction of seeing you break. He was right. This was no longer only about surviving 3 nights. It was about proving that beneath the fear, beneath the bond, beneath every law that called her property, there was still a part of Celeste Anderson that belonged only to herself. Why are you truly doing this? Nick asked. Freedom? His laugh was cold and bitter. There is no freedom for Omegas anymore. Suppose you survive. Where will you go? Which pack will accept the Alpha King's rejected, fated mate? His words struck deeper than the bond sickness. You will be considered tainted. A wolf with no pack, no protection, no home. Celeste had not thought beyond the 4th dawn. She had imagined freedom as an open door, never what waited beyond it. Nick's voice softened into something more dangerous. So I will ask again. What are you trying to prove? Her answer emerged as a broken whisper. That I am not what you made me. She lifted her eyes to his. That even if everyone sees me as property, as something to use, own, and throw away, I still belong to myself. Each word cost her breath. My choices are mine. My will is mine. Her legs shook violently. You may take my body. You may cause me pain, but you cannot possess the part of me that matters unless I give it to you. For one heartbeat, Nick's mask slipped. Surprise appeared first, then recognition, then something Celeste could not name. He buried it beneath amusement. Beautiful words, he said. His gaze moved toward the clock. Let us see whether you still believe them at dawn. Midnight struck. The first chime shattered Celeste. Pain exploded through her body at a level she had not known was possible. It felt as though her soul had been divided. One half remained trapped inside her chest. The other fought to cross the room and merge with Nick. Her wolf stopped resisting and began begging. Surrender. Touch him. Make it stop. Celeste's knees failed. She struck the marble floor, barely catching herself on her hands. Cold stone pressed against burning skin. She could no longer stand, could no longer pretend this was merely a contest of endurance. All she could do was remain where she had fallen and refuse to crawl. Impressive, Nick said. For the first time, the praise sounded sincere. Most do not reach 10 o'clock. His boots entered her blurred vision. But the night is not over. Little Omega, he crouched before her. You have 6 hours remaining. His face was so close. One movement, one touch. Celeste locked her jaw. Nick raised a hand slowly, allowing her to see what he intended. Then he cupped her cheek. The relief was immediate. It poured through her body like light, extinguishing the fire for one glorious instant. Her wolf purred with exhausted gratitude. Celeste nearly collapsed into his palm. Then Nick removed his hand. The loss was more brutal than the original pain. A broken sound escaped Celeste's throat. She hated herself for it. That is what you are fighting, Nick said quietly. Not me, that need. His eyes held hers. The bond grants enough relief to remind you what you lack, and then tears it away. He rose over her. This is your final opportunity. Submit, and I will end the pain. I will give your wolf everything she is begging for. His voice became almost gentle. Or remain on this floor for 6 more hours, knowing one word could save you. One word. Celeste thought of her father burning, Priscilla being dragged away, 47 Omegas standing in chains. She thought of 3 nights against a lifetime, 72 hours against forever, and she remained silent. She stayed on her hands and knees, shaking, bleeding, and refusing to offer Nick the one thing he desired most, her willing surrender. Nick studied her for a long time. Then something unexpected happened. He smiled. There was no mockery in it, only astonishment and reluctant admiration. You magnificent, stubborn fool, he murmured. He returned to his chair, and he gave her exactly what she had demanded, the chance to prove she could not be broken. The hours crawled forward like years. By 3 in the morning, Pain had become Celeste's entire world. Every breath cut, every heartbeat sent another wave through her body. Her wolf had fallen silent from exhaustion, leaving Celeste alone with the fragile thread of determination holding her conscious. She counted veins in the marble. White, gray, white again. She traced patterns with her eyes, focused on the cold beneath her palms. Anything except the knowledge that relief sat only a few feet away. Near dawn, hallucinations came. Her father stood in the corner, skin blackened by fire, accusing her of failure. Priscilla appeared beside him, golden hair shining, laughing that Celeste had always been the weak sister. Then her mother's face emerged from the darkness. Plain Celeste, the vision whispered. Ordinary Celeste. You were never meant for anything more than this. Stay with me, Omega. Nick's command cut through the nightmare. Celeste blinked. He was crouched beside her again. His hand hovered near her face without making contact. For one unguarded heartbeat, concern showed in his eyes. Then he concealed it. Do not pass out, he ordered. That would be cheating, I said dawn, and I meant conscious at dawn. His voice hardened. Fight! Damn you! Why did he care? If she lost consciousness, he would win. But there was something beneath his anger. Respect. Perhaps even fear that she might not awaken. Celeste clung to it. I am still here, she whispered through cracked lips. Nick stared at her. Yes, he said softly. You are. Then the horizon changed. The first line of sunlight appeared beyond the windows. Gold spilled across the marble, turning white stone amber and rose. Celeste watched it move toward her hands like hope made visible. It reached her fingers, then her face. She had survived. Nick stood and looked at the clock. Dawn, he announced. His voice carried formal finality. The first night is complete. He looked down at her trembling body. You may stand. The test is over, Celeste tried. Her legs refused. Her arms collapsed beneath her. She fell fully onto the floor, cheek pressed against blessedly cold marble. Nick released a quiet sigh. Then he bent and lifted her. The bond sang at the contact. Her exhausted wolf stirred with weak joy as he carried Celeste to the four-poster bed and placed her on the black silk sheets. His movements were unexpectedly gentle. Sleep, he ordered, drawing a blanket over her. You earned it. Celeste struggled to focus on his face. Why? She asked. Why are you being kind? Nick watched her for a long moment. Something unreadable moved behind his winter-colored eyes. Because you impressed me, little Omega, he straightened. And very few wolves are capable of that. At the door, he paused. 2 nights remain. His expression darkened. Rest while you can. Tomorrow will be worse. He left her alone as morning filled the chamber. Celeste finally allowed unconsciousness to claim her. She had survived the first night by fighting the bond. But as sleep pulled her under, her wolf whispered a terrible warning. The bond was growing stronger with every hour they spent together. By the 3rd night, resistance might not be enough. By the 3rd night. Celeste might no longer want to resist at all. Chapter 3. The Omega's Hidden Strength. Celeste woke to the scent of warm bread and the soft murmur of female voices. Pain greeted her next. Every muscle ached as though an entire pack had run over her. When she tried to sit, her arms trembled beneath the effort. The bond sickness had retreated into a dull pressure beneath her ribs, now that Nick was no longer in the chamber, but the memory of the night remained inside her body. Her wolf stirred weakly, alive, exhausted, still hers. They had survived the first trial. She is awake, someone whispered. Celeste forced open her eyes. 2 women stood beside the bed. Both wore plain gray servant dresses. Both carried the same black mark tattooed around one wrist, the royal brand that declared them property of the crown. Omegas. The older woman appeared to be around 40, with gentle brown eyes and strands of silver threaded through dark hair. The younger could not have been more than 19. Nervous energy moved through her like a visible tremor. Slowly, the older woman said, placing a tray on the table. Bond sickness does not release the body all at once. Bond sickness. Such a quiet name for what Nick had done to her. Celeste managed to sit against the pillows. Who are you? Diane Fleming. I supervise the Omega servants assigned to the King's Wing. The woman gestured beside her. This is Cherie Glass, one of my assistants. Diane nodded toward the food. His Majesty ordered you to eat, bathe, and rest. He will return at sunset for the second night. Sunset. Celeste had perhaps 12 hours before the next trial began. The tray held fresh bread, cheese, fruit, and a bowl of thick stew. Her empty stomach clenched. She had not eaten since before the auction, nearly 2 days. Her fingers shook as she reached for the bread. How terrible was it? Cherie asked suddenly. Diane gave her a warning look. The first night, Cherie continued anyway. Everyone heard you lasted until dawn. No one does that. Celeste saw more than curiosity in their faces. There was fear, and beneath it, hope. As though one Omega's refusal to break might prove that the rest of them were not as powerless as the king wanted them to believe. It was hell, Celeste answered honestly. She tore off a piece of bread and forced herself to chew slowly. He never injured me with his hands. He stayed close enough for my wolf to sense him, but too far away for the bond to find relief, she swallowed. 6 hours of separation pain. I would not recommend it. Diane sat on the edge of the bed. Bond torture, she said. It is one of his favored tests. Most Omegas last less than an hour before crawling to him. Admiration flickered across her face. The fact that you endured until dawn is why the entire Citadel is talking. You are either the bravest Omega here, or the most foolish. Probably the second, Celeste muttered. The first spoonful of stew felt like life returning to her body. What will happen tonight? Diane and Cherie exchanged a quick glance. We do not know, Diane admitted. The king changes each trial according to what he learns about the Omega, she hesitated. But you must understand something, Celeste. Her voice lowered. No one has ever survived all 3 nights. Celeste's hand stopped above the bowl. Those who pass the first usually break during the second. The few who reach the third. Diane's eyes became distant. What happened to them? Celeste asked. Cherie looked away. They lost their minds, Diane whispered. One leaped from a tower. Another clawed out her own eyes. A fated bond is not designed to be resisted forever. It is part of a wolf's deepest nature. Her expression tightened. If you fight it too long, the fight can destroy you. The food turned tasteless in Celeste's mouth. Then why offer me freedom? She asked. If Mick knows no one can win, why give me hope? Because hope makes defeat more painful, Diane said softly. If you submitted immediately, you would become another nameless servant in his collection. But now you have imagined freedom. When you finally break, it will hurt more because you came close enough to touch it. Celeste set down the spoon. You are telling me to surrender. I am telling you to survive. Diane gripped her hand. Whatever he demands tonight, consider yielding before the bond takes your sanity. Servitude is terrible, but it is still life. She chose her next words carefully. And the king is not always as cruel as the stories claim. If you demonstrate obedience, he may lose interest and assign you lighter duties. A decent life as his slave, Celeste said flatly. A life, Diane answered. More than many Omegas receive. Cherie had remained quiet, but now she leaned closer. There is another reason everyone is talking about last night. She glanced toward Diane. The older woman gave a reluctant nod. His Majesty normally does not remain for bond torture, Cherie explained. He gives the order, leaves, and returns at dawn. Her eyes met Celeste's. But he stayed with you for all 6 hours. Celeste's heart shifted painfully. And when you began hallucinating, he moved closer. He looked. Cherie searched for the word. Worried. That makes no sense, Celeste said. If I died, he would simply choose another Omega. Not another fated mate, Diane replied. Her grip tightened around Celeste's fingers. A true fated bond comes once. If one mate dies, the survivor lives with half a soul for the rest of their life. Even Nick Skinner would not risk that without concern. Diane leaned nearer. He needs you alive, Celeste. Even while he pushes you toward breaking, he cannot allow you to die. That may be the only advantage you possess. Before Celeste could absorb the warning, the bedroom doors opened violently. A tall, lean man entered. His face was sharp, his expression sharper. He wore a formal black council uniform with silver insignia across the collar. Behind him came an Omega servant carrying a garment bag. "Out," he ordered. Diane and Cherie obeyed at once, though Diane looked back at Celeste before the doors closed. The man circled the bed. So this is the fated mate who has set the entire palace whispering. His gaze was openly critical. I expected something more remarkable. Celeste pulled the blanket closer around herself. Plain face, ordinary build, nothing exceptional in your scent. He tilted his head. What could the moon goddess have seen in you that justified binding you to the most powerful alpha in the realm? Who are you? Roman Terry. He stopped beside the bed. First counselor to His Majesty, and the nearest thing the king has to a friend. Roman snapped his fingers. The servant opened the garment bag. An emerald gown appeared beneath the fabric. Celeste forgot the insult. The dress was exquisite, deep green silk, fitted through the waist and hips, with an off-the-shoulder neckline and tiny beads that caught the light like stars. Tonight, the king hosts a formal dinner, Roman said. His inner council will attend, along with powerful alphas and dignitaries from allied territories. He nodded toward the gown. You will accompany him. Celeste stared at him. Last night he tortured me. Tonight he wants me at dinner? You will be presented as the Alpha King's fated mate, Roman continued. You will sit at his right hand, smile when required, speak carefully, and appear honored by his attention. His mouth curved without warmth. That position is one many Omegas would kill to possess. What is the actual test? Celeste asked. Roman's gaze hardened. Whether you can perform the role without destroying him. He leaned closer. The moment the bond formed, Nick became vulnerable for the first time since taking the throne. Every alpha in that hall will examine you for weakness. If they find it, they will use it to question his judgment, his dominance, and his fitness to rule. His voice dropped. You cannot flinch. You cannot lose control. You cannot give them anything that can be turned against you or the crown. Celeste's mouth went dry. So tonight is politics. Tonight is survival in a room where no one needs claws to draw blood. The question is whether you are an asset or a liability. Roman straightened. You have 8 hours. Diane will prepare you. An etiquette instructor will arrive at noon. Learn quickly. He turned toward the door, then paused. One more warning, Celeste waited. The king intends to touch you tonight. Roman's expression became almost amused. Nothing openly indecent. A hand at your back, fingers against your neck, perhaps a kiss if the moment requires it. He must display possession before the court. His eyes glittered. The bond will make each touch feel like salvation. Try not to embarrass yourself in front of the dignitaries. Then he left. Celeste looked at the emerald gown and understood that the second night would be more dangerous than the first. Last night, Nick had attacked her body through the bond. Tonight, he intended to attack her dignity, her judgment, and every hidden weakness inside her. The following hours became preparation for war disguised as beauty. Diane returned with several servants. They lowered Celeste into a marble bath large enough for 10 people and scrubbed away the grime of captivity and the sweat of the previous night. Oils softened her skin. Warm towels wrapped around her aching body. A hairdresser spent nearly 2 hours arranging her brown hair into an elegant twist, threading thin silver chains through it. At noon, Josephina Coyle arrived. The severe beta woman studied Celeste for less than 30 seconds before speaking. You stand like a field worker. Celeste opened her mouth. Do not answer. Shoulders back, chin level. Josephina circled her. When you walk, imagine a book balanced on your head. No heavy steps, no nervous movements. She stopped in front of Celeste. You will sit at the king's right hand, the highest position at the table. Every wolf will watch you. Her instructions came like arrows. Appear confident, never arrogant. Modest, never weak. Attractive, never threatening to the alpha females. That is an impossible number of contradictions, Celeste muttered. Welcome to court, Josephina replied. For 4 hours, Celeste learned the rules of a world designed to conceal violence behind polished silver. Which spoon belonged to soup? Which fork to use for each course? How to hold a wine glass? How to take small bites when hungry enough to devour an entire table? How to answer questions without revealing anything? If they ask about silver pine, Josephina instructed, say, His Majesty has been generous in welcoming me to court. Celeste repeated the phrase. If they praise your appearance, accept it and redirect the compliment toward the king. His Majesty's favor makes anyone beautiful, Celeste recited. And if someone insults me? Josephina paused. Do not react. Look toward the king and allow him to answer. Celeste frowned. One careless word may become a weapon, Josephina said. The king has enemies in that room, wolves who smile while planning his death. Her expression softened slightly. Give them nothing. Be perfect. Be untouchable. Be worthy of the position fate has placed beside him. And if I fail? Celeste asked. Sadness entered Josephina's eyes. Then the king will have to break you publicly or privately to restore his authority. She touched Celeste's shoulder once. Do not fail, child. For either of you, by sunset, the sky outside had turned blood red and gold. Celeste stood before the mirror in the emerald gown. It fitted as though made for her body, because it probably had been. The silk revealed curves she had never noticed. The open neckline exposed her throat and collarbones, making her feel both powerful and dangerously unprotected. Silver chains shimmered through her dark brown hair. Diane's careful makeup had not made her beautiful in the way Priscilla had been beautiful. It had made her striking. For the first time, Celeste looked into a mirror and saw a woman who could command attention instead of escaping it. You look like a queen, Cherie whispered. Celeste saw only an ordinary Omega wearing an expensive disguise. Still, she straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. The doors opened. Nick stood on the other side. For one heartbeat, Celeste forgot how to breathe. He had exchanged black tactical gear for formal court clothing. A perfectly tailored black suit shaped his broad frame, with silver embroidery marking his rank at the collar and cuffs. His dark hair had been swept back from his face. He looked less like a soldier and more like a dark god dressed for judgment. His gaze traveled over Celeste slowly, face, exposed throat, emerald silk, then back to her eyes. Something flashed through his expression before he concealed it. You are less disappointing than expected, he said. You sound disappointed by that, Celeste replied. The corner of his mouth moved. Come here, not a request. Celeste approached until only a small distance remained between them. Nick erased it. His hand cupped her jaw. Unlike the previous night, he did not withdraw. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and the bond responded with a wave of warmth so powerful her wolf nearly purred. Tonight, you are mine, he said softly. My mate, my companion, my possession. His breath brushed her lips. Every wolf in that hall will see you beside me and understand that I have claimed you. His hand slid to the back of her neck. They will also search for weakness. Some will provoke you. Some will tempt you into revealing information. His grip tightened slightly. And some may attempt to hurt you simply to discover whether I defend you. Celeste's heart hammered. Will you? She asked. Defend me? Nick smiled without warmth. That depends on how well you perform. He released her and offered his arm with formal courtesy. Shall we, little Omega? Celeste placed her hand against the hard muscle beneath his sleeve. He led her into the corridor. Behind them, Cherie watched with wide eyes. Do you think she will survive? She whispered. Diane's face remained troubled. We are about to learn whether an ordinary Omega can stand inside a room filled with predators. She watched the pair disappear beyond the marble archway. And if she cannot, then the moon goddess has made a terrible mistake. Chapter 4. Dinner with Wolves. The grand dining hall had been built to make lesser wolves feel small. Celeste understood that the moment the massive doors opened, 50 heads turned at once. The hall stretched beneath vaulted ceilings and crystal chandeliers. Tapestries of ancient battles covered the walls. A long table filled the center of the room, crowded with alphas, counselors, and their companions, all dressed in wealth, all watching the ordinary Omega beside the king. Nick placed his hand against the base of Celeste's spine. Possession, claim, exactly as Roman had warned. The bond flared beneath his palm, sending warmth through her body. Her wolf, tormented for hours by distance the night before, relaxed into the contact with almost painful relief. Celeste fought the urge to lean against him. Smile, Nick murmured near her ear. You are meant to look honored. She arranged her face into a calm expression and allowed him to guide her toward the head of the table. Whispers followed. That is truly her? Nothing but a common Omega. What could the goddess possibly see in her? Give the king 3 nights. He will empty her like the others. Nick pulled out the chair at his right hand, the place of highest honor. Celeste sat exactly as Josefina had taught her. Spine straight, shoulders relaxed, hands composed in her lap. Nick took the throne-like chair at the head of the table. Silence fell immediately. My lords, my ladies. His voice reached every corner without effort. As you have undoubtedly heard, the moon goddess has granted me a fated mate. His hand found Celeste's on the table. He threaded their fingers together slowly enough for everyone to see. Celeste Anderson, formerly of Silver Pine Pack. His gaze moved through the room. Now, and forever, mine. The final word sent a shiver through Celeste that had little to do with fear. An older alpha halfway down the table raised his glass. To his majesty and his fated mate. May their bond strengthen the realm. Others followed. Celeste took the small sip Josefina had instructed and lowered the glass before anyone could mistake thirst for nerves. The first course arrived in translucent porcelain bowls. Celeste selected the outer spoon. Every movement felt observed. So, Miss Anderson, a woman seated across from her, smiled. She possessed the severe beauty of a high-born alpha. Sharp cheekbones, amber eyes, and the confidence of someone accustomed to being desired. Tell us about yourself. It is not every day a common Omega captures the Alpha King's attention. The contempt hidden inside the word common was not subtle. Nick's thumb tightened against Celeste's hand. A warning. His Majesty has been generous in welcoming me to court, Celeste replied. I am honored by his favor. How well rehearsed. The woman's smile showed teeth. But surely you possess thoughts of your own. She lifted her wine glass. I am Lynn Donovan, Alpha of the Eastern Shore Pack. His Majesty and I have been close since the beginning of his reign. The message was unmistakable. Lynn had history with Nick, rank, beauty, power. She wanted Celeste to feel like an intruder. Celeste refused. Then I hope to know you better, she said warmly. Anyone who has earned His Majesty's trust must understand parts of him that would be valuable to me as I adjust to court. Lynn's eyes narrowed. She had expected jealousy. When none appeared, she changed weapons. What role did you hold at Silver Pine before the king conquered it? She emphasized conquered. Not unified. Not liberated. Conquered. I assisted in my father's household, Celeste answered. He was the Pack Beta. He taught me that loyalty and duty were among a wolf's highest virtues. How interesting, the gray-haired Alpha said. He had offered the toast earlier. Now his tone carried deliberate challenge. I heard the Silver Pine Beta refuse surrender and chose to burn rather than kneel. He looked directly at Celeste. Would you call that loyalty, Miss Anderson? Or foolishness? The entire table became still. It was a perfect trap. Defend her father, and she condemned Nick. Condemn her father, and she betrayed the dead. Nick stroked his thumb once across her knuckles. Celeste could not tell whether he offered comfort or warned her not to fail. My father made the choice he believed his honor demanded, she said carefully. His Majesty made the choice he believed the future of the realm required. She held the older Alpha's gaze. Both acted according to their nature. Those choices brought them into conflict. Her voice remained steady. That is the truth of war. Someone always loses for a heartbeat. No one spoke. Then Nick laughed. The sound was genuine, surprised, and dangerous enough to make several wolves startle. Well answered, little mate, he raised his glass. To the truth of war, and to wolves wise enough to recognize it. The tension fractured. Conversation returned. Celeste released the breath trapped inside her lungs. The first attack had failed. The night had only begun. The second course arrived. Fish covered in sauces she could not name. Celeste ate without tasting. Nick's hand moved frequently, her shoulder, her arm, the back of her neck. Each touch appeared casual. None of them were. He timed them to moments when conversation became dangerous. Sometimes the contact steadied her through the bond. Sometimes it reminded her that he controlled the distance between pleasure and pain. And always, it told the court that she belonged to him. Your Majesty, a younger Alpha said, we were surprised to hear of your fated mate after so many years. His smile did not reach his eyes. Some had begun to believe the goddess intended you to rule alone. The goddess's timing belongs to her, Nick replied. Though I appreciate your concern for my private life, Toby Maddox. Celeste remembered Roman's lesson, recently elevated over the Northern Territories. Ambitious, loyal only while loyalty benefited him. Of course, your Majesty. Toby's attention shifted to Celeste. I merely wonder whether someone of Miss Anderson's humble origins understands the responsibilities of standing beside the Alpha King. The challenge arrived beneath perfect courtesy. Politics. Expectations. Danger. He wanted the room to question whether Nick's mate was beneath the crown. I am learning, Celeste said before Nick could answer. His Majesty has been patient with my education. Then she met Toby's stare. Court politics is not so different from pack life. Both require knowing when to speak, when to listen. Her smile sharpened. And when to recognize a threat hidden inside friendly words. Toby's face hardened. Lynn made a small sound of disbelief. Beneath the table, Nick's hand closed around Celeste's thigh. Possessive. Approving. Indeed, he said softly. Danger threaded through every syllable. My mate is learning quickly, he looked along the table. Remember this. What belongs to me is protected by me. An insult to Celeste is an insult to the crown. A threat against her is a threat against my rule. His smile froze the room. And you all know how I answer threats, the warning landed. Conversation moved toward trade routes and border disputes. But Celeste could feel resentment beneath the surface. Lynn saw her as a rival. Toby saw her as an obstacle. And many others despised the idea that an ordinary Omega could rise beside the king simply because the moon goddess had chosen her. Course followed course. Celeste's cheeks ached from smiling. Her body thrummed beneath Nick's relentless touches. During a pause in conversation, he bent toward her. You are performing well, he whispered. Better than I expected. Is that the trial? She whispered back. Surviving this dinner? Part of it. His fingers traced slowly up her spine. Celeste's breath caught. The other part is enduring me. His fingertips found the sensitive place at the base of her skull. The fated bond strengthens through public acts of possession. Every time I touch you before witnesses, the claim deepens. Pressure from his fingers sent need through her wolf. By the end of this dinner, you will be desperate for contact. Nick's lips almost brushed her ear. That is tonight's true torment, little mate. Not politics, his voice darkened. Wanting, Celeste dug her nails into her palm. He was right. Each touch built upon the one before. Her wolf no longer accepted a hand at her back or fingers at her neck as enough. The bond demanded closeness, completion. The surrender Celeste had spent 2 days refusing. I hate you, she breathed. The words lacked conviction even to her own ears. Nick gave a low laugh. No, you do not. He settled his hand on her shoulder. That is the problem. The bond knows only that you are mine and I am yours. His thumb moved once against her skin. We are fighting the most basic truth of what we are. His smile deepened. Continue fighting, Celeste. I am enjoying the struggle. By the 5th course, she could barely taste the food. An older alpha near the far end of the table raised his voice. Your Majesty, perhaps you would honor us with the story of how you met your fated mate. Nick's face revealed nothing. We met at the Omega auction. The bond formed the instant our eyes met. He squeezed Celeste's hand. I knew she was mine. How romantic, Lynn said dryly. Nothing declares true love quite like purchasing property. Several wolves choked on their wine. Nick went still. Violence gathered around him so quickly that Celeste felt the room tighten. This was her moment. She could allow Nick to destroy Lynn for the insult. Or she could prove she was not a helpless Omega who required a king to speak for her. You are correct, Alpha Donovan, Celeste said. Lynn blinked. It was not romantic. Celeste's voice remained clear. But the moon goddess does not promise romance. She deals in necessity. Balance. She binds wolves who need one another, even when neither understands why. Celeste held Lynn's gaze. His Majesty could have chosen any Omega at that auction. Beautiful ones, trained ones. Women far easier to present beside a throne. She allowed a small smile. But the bond chose me. Plain, common Celeste from a conquered pack. The table listened in complete silence. So perhaps, rather than questioning the goddess's judgment, we should ask what she saw in this pairing that the rest of us remained too blind to recognize. Lynn's face paled with rage. Toby looked as though he had swallowed broken glass. The older alpha who had challenged Celeste earlier regarded her with reluctant respect. Nick's hand tightened at her shoulder. Approval. When he spoke, his authority filled the hall. My mate makes an excellent point. His gaze moved to Lynn. The moon goddess does not require the approval of this court. Celeste Anderson is my fated mate. She sits at my right hand. His smile became predatory. To question her place is to question divine order. He leaned back. Would you like to continue, Lynn? I am always interested to learn which of my subjects believes herself wiser than the goddess. Lynn's jaw tightened. Of course not, Your Majesty. I apologize, accepted. Nick wrapped an arm around Celeste's waist and drew her closer. Now, shall we have dessert? The final courses passed through a haze of adrenaline and bond heat. Celeste had done it. She had survived wolves who had practiced court warfare since before she could read. She had defended herself, the bond, and her place without begging Nick to rescue her. When dinner finally ended, Nick stood and offered his hand. Walk with me. Celeste obeyed. He led her away from the dining hall, through torchlit corridors. She expected his chambers. Instead, he took her onto a balcony overlooking the conquered territories. The cold night air cut through emerald silk. Below, the citadel spread in hard walls and sharp towers. Beyond it glowed the cities Nick had claimed through fire and blood. You surprised me, he said. Both hands rested on the stone railing. The way you handled Lynn, the way you defended the bond without pretending to defend everything I have done, he turned. I expected. What did you expect? Celeste asked. Weakness. Nick removed his jacket and placed it over her shoulders. The warmth carried his scent. The bond responded at once. Submission, he continued, a mate who would fold beneath the first pressure. His expression held equal parts admiration and frustration. Instead, fate gave me a wolf with a spine of steel and a tongue sharp enough to cut. He stepped closer. You will be trouble, Celeste Anderson. Is that why you created the trials? She asked. Because I am not what you wanted? Nick remained quiet for a long moment. When he answered, his voice carried an honesty she had never heard from him. I created them because I do not know what else to do with you. He faced her fully. I spent years becoming a monster, a conqueror, a king who rules because every wolf fears what happens when he is challenged. His hand rose to her cheek. Then the goddess bound me to an omega from a pack I destroyed. A woman who looks at me as though I am both her salvation and her damnation. His thumb traced her lower lip. If I treat you gently, the court sees weakness. If I treat you cruelly, I betray the bond. He drew a slow breath. So I test you. I push. I wait to see whether you will break, bend, or find some third path I have never considered. The bond surged beneath his touch. What happens if I survive tomorrow night? Celeste whispered. I grant your freedom. His answer came without hesitation. You leave the Citadel. You leave me. And I live the rest of my life with half a soul, wondering what might have happened if you had chosen to stay. And if I break? Darkness entered his eyes. Then I keep you. I make you mine in every way that matters. Time and the bond wear down the part of you that continues to resist. His hand moved behind her neck. Eventually, you become like every obedient omega in my court. His voice went cold. Beautiful. Compliant. Empty. The words should have driven Celeste away. Instead, wrapped in his jacket while his touch remained gentle, she faced a more terrifying truth. She did not want to break, but she no longer knew whether she wanted to leave. Somewhere between the agony of the first night and the battle at dinner, Nick had become more than the man who conquered her pack. She saw intelligence inside his cruelty, loneliness beneath his power, the way he protected her even while testing her, the way his presence felt dangerous and impossibly safe. One more night, Nick murmured. His forehead rested against hers. One more trial. Then we will know whether the moon goddess made a mistake. He kissed her, not with the violence Celeste expected, slowly, deeply. A kiss that carried threat, promise, and a hunger neither of them could hide. The bond burst open between them. Heat flooded Celeste's body. Her wolf rose with a cry of recognition. For one terrible, perfect moment, every part of her believed this was what she had been created for. This man, this bond, this impossible choice between freedom and fate. When Nick pulled away, his eyes had become molten silver. Return to my chambers, he said. His dangerous smile returned. Tomorrow night, I will show you what it truly means to be the Alpha King's fated mate. Then he left her alone beneath the stars, wearing his jacket and carrying the taste of him on her lips. Celeste had survived the second night, but as she walked back through the silent citadel, she understood that she had lost something more dangerous than a battle. She had begun to fall for the monster who destroyed her world. And that made the final trial more dangerous than any pain Nick could create. Chapter 5. The Truth Beneath the Crown. Celeste did not sleep. She lay beneath Nick's black sheets while his scent surrounded her. Winter pine and gunpowder, danger and warmth tangled together. Her thoughts returned again and again to the dinner, his hand at her back, his voice defending her before the court, the kiss beneath the stars, a kiss that had tasted like surrender and victory. Her wolf paced inside her mind with restless energy. The bond no longer felt like a chain pulling her toward Nick. It felt like a lifeline. Even with him somewhere else inside the citadel, distance created an ache beneath Celeste's ribs. Not the violent agony of the first night, but a constant reminder that the wolf destined for her was absent. This was what Diane had warned her about. The bond was dismantling her resistance piece by piece, making her hunger for the man she should have hated. The bedroom door opened near dawn. Celeste sat upright, heart racing, but Roman Terry entered instead of Nick. He carried breakfast in one hand and another garment bag in the other. "Good morning, almost free Omega," he said with artificial cheer. "Did you sleep well?" "What do you want, counselor?" Celeste drew the blanket higher around the thin nightdress she had worn after leaving the balcony. Roman set down the tray. "To deliver a warning." He looked toward the windows as dawn painted the territories rose and gold. "And perhaps to offer advice you did not request." Celeste waited. "You performed exceptionally last night," he said. "You made Lynn Donovan appear jealous and foolish. Several counselors who wagered you would fail before the first course are now reconsidering you." "Why do I hear about approaching?" "Because one is." Roman turned. "You also placed a target on your back." His expression sharpened. "Lynn has powerful allies. Toby Maddox does not forgive humiliation. If you survive tonight and the king releases you, they will not allow you to wander freely with knowledge of this court." Celeste's stomach tightened. "They will see you as a loose thread." "A thread to cut," she said. Roman nodded. "So I am trapped either way. Stay and become Nick's property. Leave and become prey. There is a third path." Roman moved closer. "Complete the bond." Celeste went still. "Choose to remain, not as a prisoner, but as his mate, his equal, the queen this realm needs. I am an Omega." "Alpha and Omega are designations of dominance," Roman replied. "They are not limits placed upon destiny." He sat at the edge of the bed. "A completed fated bond transcends normal hierarchy. If you accept Nick and claim him in return, his authority becomes yours. His enemies become your enemies." Roman's smile was thin, "and his protection becomes absolute. You are asking me to surrender. I am asking you to understand the larger war." For the first time, Roman's expression lost its mockery. "Do you know why Nick truly destroyed the old pack system? Because he wanted power. Because his sister was an Omega." The answer struck like thunder. Celeste stared at him. "Her name was Natasha," Roman continued quietly. "She was 3 years younger than Nick. Beautiful, kind. Everything the old traditions demanded an Omega should be." His gaze became distant. When she presented at 16, their father celebrated. He was alpha of one of the strongest packs in the realm, and he arranged her marriage to an allied alpha. Roman's jaw tightened. He told Natasha it was her duty, her honor. Celeste already feared what came next. The marriage lasted 6 months. Roman's voice went hollow. Her husband abused her, violated her, and treated her as breeding property because the old laws gave him that right. When she attempted to escape, he dragged her back. When she begged Nick for help, their father forbade him to interfere. "Why?" Celeste whispered. "To protect the alliance, to avoid appearing weak." Tears burned behind Celeste's eyes. "What happened to her?" 3 days before her 17th birthday, Natasha threw herself from a tower. "Nick found her," Roman swallowed. "He held her while she died." The room seemed to lose all sound. That night, Nick challenged his father to ritual combat and killed him before the entire pack. Then he declared war on every alpha who defended the system that destroyed his sister. Roman met Celeste's gaze. Nick did not begin conquering because he wanted a larger throne. His voice hardened. He wanted to burn down the world that killed Natasha. Celeste could barely breathe. "He became a monster in the process," Roman continued. "He has committed acts no grief can excuse. But every Omega registered as crown property is protected by royal decree. No alpha may beat them, sell them, kill them, drive them toward the same end Natasha chose." Roman's mouth twisted bitterly. "They are still slaves, yes, but they are alive." In Nick's broken mind, that was an improvement. Everything Celeste believed about the Alpha King shifted. His cruelty remained real. The burned packs remained real. Her father's death and Priscilla's captivity remained real. But beneath the tyrant was a brother who had watched the person he loved be destroyed and then remade the realm so violently that he became another form of the same evil. "Why tell me this now?" she asked. "Because the final trial is the hardest," Roman stood. "If you leave, Mick loses the only fated mate he will ever have. He will survive. He is too stubborn to die from a broken bond." His gaze moved toward the door. "But he will never be whole." Roman lifted the garment bag. "If you stay, you may be the only wolf capable of teaching him how to build something better than the world he destroyed." At the threshold, he paused. "The choice remains yours, Celeste. It always has. Just make certain you understand what you are truly choosing." He left her with breakfast cooling untouched. The day passed inside a strange silence. Diane and Cherie arrived to prepare her, but neither spoke with their usual openness. News of the dinner had spread through the Citadel. The story of an ordinary Omega standing against Lynn Donovan had already become legend among the servants. "You are brave," Diane said while brushing Celeste's hair, "or dangerously foolish." "Everyone keeps offering me those same choices," Celeste replied. "Lynn commands the Eastern Shore Pack. She does not forgive humiliation." "The king will protect Celeste," Cherie insisted. Diane looked at the younger woman. "The king has enemies and a realm to govern. Even he cannot stand beside one wolf every moment." Then she met Celeste's eyes in the mirror. "If you claim your freedom tonight, you will be alone. No pack, no title, no protection. Only the mark of being the Alpha King's rejected mate. Perhaps freedom is worth the risk," Celeste said. The doubt in her own voice betrayed her. By sunset, she wore a deep burgundy gown. Simpler than the emerald court dress, it wrapped around her body like a second skin. Cherie arranged her hair into loose waves down her back. The woman in the mirror looked strong enough to wear a crown. But beneath silk and careful cosmetics, Celeste still saw the invisible girl from Silver Pine. The Omega nobody wanted. The sister always overlooked beside beautiful Priscilla. The bedroom doors opened. Nick stood there without armor, insignia, or royal formality. Simple black trousers. A loose shirt exposing the strong line of his throat. Bare feet against the marble. Dark hair disordered as though he had dragged his hands through it all day. For the first time, he looked young. Not harmless, but human. "It is time," he said. Celeste's heartbeat accelerated. "What is the final trial?" "The truth." Nick held out his hand. "Come with me." She placed her fingers in his. The bond sang. He led her through corridors she had never seen, then down narrow stone stairs descending beneath the citadel. They passed guards who lowered their eyes and doors sealed by locks that opened only when Nick pressed his blood against the metal. Deeper, colder, far beneath the throne built on conquest. At last, they entered a circular chamber. Celeste stopped breathing. The walls were glass. Water surrounded them on every side. They stood inside a submerged room beneath the Citadel Lake. Silver fish moved beyond the windows while pale plants glowed along the underwater stone, filling the chamber with blue-green light. At its center stood a memorial. A statue of a young woman reached toward the ceiling, her face lifted, arms spread as though she had been trying to fly. Fresh flowers surrounded the base. The inscription beneath her feet carried a single name, Natasha Skinner. Celeste looked at Nick. "My sister," he said. There was no king in his voice, only grief. Roman had told the truth. Nick approached the statue and replaced one fading flower with a fresh white bloom he had carried unseen. "I come here when I need to remember why I began," he said. His fingers brushed the carved stone. "Or when I fear I have forgotten." Celeste moved closer. "You loved her." "More than anyone," his answer broke on the final word. "For 8 years, I believed love was weakness. Natasha loved our family. She trusted tradition. She believed her husband would protect her because that was what every story promised." Nick gave a bitter laugh. "Love gave everyone around her the power to destroy her." He turned toward Celeste. "So I became a wolf no one could hurt, no one could threaten, no one could make vulnerable." His silver blue eyes met hers. "Then I saw you on the auction platform." The bond tightened between them. For the first time since Natasha died, I felt something besides rage. "What?" Celeste whispered. "Hope!" The confession appeared to cost him more than blood. Terrible, unwanted hope that perhaps the goddess had not abandoned me, that perhaps there was still something beyond the cold existence I built. Celeste saw him then. Not the crown, not the conqueror. A lonely wolf who had protected himself from loss by becoming impossible to love. "So you tested me," she said. "I pushed until you should have broken." Nick stepped nearer. "I needed you to prove hope was another lie." His sad smile held no cruelty. "But you refused. You fought me. You endured the bond. You stood inside a room of alphas and looked at me as though I was both the answer and the question. Another step. Salvation and damnation inside one wolf." He stopped before her. "And now I am standing before my sister's memorial to offer you what no Omega in my realm has received." His voice softened. The choice Natasha was denied. Celeste's heart beat against her ribs. What choice? Stay or go? Nick lifted both hands to her face. "If you stay, it will not be as my slave, not my prisoner, not a broken Omega displayed for my amusement." His touch trembled. "You will stay as my mate, my equal, the queen who stands beside me and reminds me that strength is not the only virtue worth protecting." He rested his forehead against hers. The bond pulsed like a living heart. "If you leave, I will keep my word. Freedom, safe passage, enough wealth to begin a life beyond my reach." His breath shook. "And I will spend the rest of my existence with half a soul, wondering what we might have become." Nick released her. The loss of contact left Celeste cold. That is the final trial. No torture, no court, no command. His mask shattered completely. Only a choice. Then the most feared alpha in the realm spoke a word Celeste never imagined hearing from him. "Please," his voice broke. "Choose me. Choose the broken wolf offering you a crown, a kingdom, and a love that may consume us both." His eyes held hers. "Or choose freedom and prove that hope was always another beautiful lie." Silence filled the underwater chamber. Celeste remembered her father's screams, Priscilla being dragged away, Omegas in silver chains, the realm Nick had conquered through fire. Then she looked at Natasha's statue. A young Omega destroyed because the old world treated obedience as virtue and suffering as duty. Nick had burned that world down, but in his grief, he had created another prison. Celeste looked at the wolf before her. He could have taken her. Instead, he had brought her to the one place that contained his deepest wound and placed the decision inside her hands. Her wolf no longer begged. She waited, trusted. Celeste drew one steady breath. "I need one answer before I choose." Nick became still. "The truth," she continued. "Not the answer you believe will win me. Ask. If I remain beside you as mate and queen, will you change?" Her voice strengthened. "Will you stop enslaving Omegas? Will you build something better than the realm you created?" Nick did not answer immediately. Celeste felt the bond between them and knew he was searching for honesty rather than persuasion. Finally, he smiled, sad, real. "I do not know." It was not the promise she wanted. "I have been the monster for so long that I no longer remember how to be anything else." He took her hand and pressed it against his chest. His heart hammered beneath her palm. "But with you beside me, perhaps I can learn." He lifted her knuckles to his lips. "I cannot promise perfection. I cannot become a hero because you ask it." His kiss against her hand was devastatingly gentle. "But I can promise to listen when you tell me I am wrong, to build with you instead of only destroying, to attempt something better than fear." The answer was imperfect. Therefore, it was true. Celeste looked at Natasha, then at Nick. Two broken worlds stood before her. The one that killed Omegas behind the language of tradition, and the one that kept them alive by turning them into royal property. Neither was enough. Perhaps she had survived 3 nights not merely to escape both worlds. Perhaps she had survived to help create a third. "I choose you," Celeste said. Fear had no time to stop the words. Nick froze. Not because the bond commands me, not because leaving frightens me. She allowed him to see everything in her eyes. I choose you because we are two broken wolves trying to survive inside a broken realm. Her voice softened. And perhaps together, we can learn how to heal all three. Nick moved with desperate speed. He pulled her against him and kissed her with 8 years of loneliness breaking apart between them. The bond exploded, not in painful hunger, not in controlled sparks. This was completion. Celeste felt his soul reach for hers, felt the fated connection lock into place with a certainty deeper than law or blood. She remained herself, but she was no longer alone. He was hers, she was his, and no crown, designation, or enemy could sever what they had freely chosen. When Nick lifted his head, his eyes burned molten silver. His hands trembled around her waist. Say it again. His voice was rough. Tell me you are staying. I am staying. Celeste touched his face. I choose you, Nick Skinner, king, monster, broken wolf. All of you, his smile transformed him. Then allow me to choose you in return. Nick lowered himself onto one knee before Natasha's memorial. He took Celeste's hand in both of his. I, Nick Skinner, Alpha King of the Unified Territories, claim you, Celeste Anderson, as my fated mate. His voice carried more power than any decree. Not my property. Not my servant. My equal, my queen. The wolf who will stand beside me and remind me why power must serve something greater than itself. He removed a ring from his pocket. Simple silver surrounded a moonstone that captured the underwater light. This belonged to Natasha, he said. It is the only possession of hers I kept. His eyes lifted to Celeste. I want my sister to become part of what we build. Tears blurred Celeste's vision as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fitted perfectly. I accept your claim, she whispered. And I claim you in return. Her fingers closed around his. Not merely your title or your power. She drew him to his feet. You, the wolf who has been alone for too long. The bond flared again and sealed their vows. Power moved through Celeste's chest. Nick's alpha strength, the authority of the crown, and the weight of a realm she had never asked to rule. Yet for the first time, she understood why she might be capable of carrying it. Welcome to forever, little mate, Nick murmured against her lips. I hope you do not regret choosing me. I hope you do not regret giving me a crown, Celeste replied. I have several ideas about changing your laws, Nick laughed, warmly, freely. I did promise to listen, he shook his head. Goddess help me. I have given political authority to the woman who defeated Lynn Donovan during her first dinner. He kissed her again, slower now. We will become magnificent together. His smile turned dangerous. Or burn the realm to ash. Possibly both, Celeste said. Both sounds correct, there, in an underwater chamber beneath a conquered citadel, before the memorial of an Omega who had deserved a better world. Celeste Anderson made peace with her choice. She had survived all 3 nights. She had earned freedom, and then she had chosen to stay. Not because she was weak, not because destiny forced her, but because sometimes the greatest courage was not escaping alone. Sometimes it was choosing love over fear, hope over bitterness, and healing over the safety of solitude. Even when love arrived wrapped in shadows and smelled of winter pine and gunpowder. Chapter 6. The Queen's First Decree. The announcement came at dawn. Celeste stood on the balcony above the Citadel's main courtyard, Nick's hand resting warm and steady at her waist. Hundreds of wolves filled the stone square below. Alphas, betas, and omegas summoned before sunrise to hear the crown's proclamation. Roman Terry stepped forward. By the authority entrusted to me as first counselor, he declared, his voice carrying across the courtyard, I bear witness before the moon goddess and all assembled wolves that Alpha King Nick Skinner has completed the sacred mate bond with Celeste Anderson. The crowd stirred. She is no longer property of the crown. Roman paused. She is the crown. Your Alpha Queen, with authority equal to the king's own, the courtyard erupted. Omegas near the back began cheering first. Celeste saw disbelief transform into hope across their faces. Others stood in stunned silence. Lynn Donovan looked as though someone had struck her. Toby Maddox's expression was colder, calculating the consequences before Roman had even finished speaking. Let any wolf who contests this sacred union speak now, Roman continued, or remain forever bound by law to recognize Queen Celeste's authority. No one spoke. Even Lynn understood that challenging a completed fated bond before witnesses would amount to questioning the moon goddess herself. Roman smiled. Then by law, Celeste Anderson is no more, he lifted his voice. Long live Queen Celeste Skinner, Alpha Queen of the Unified Territories. May her reign be long and her justice swift. The chant rose from below. Long live the Queen, again, louder. Long live the Queen! Nick drew Celeste closer. How does it feel? He murmured near her ear. To move from an auction platform to a throne in 3 days. Terrifying, she admitted. I do not know how to be a queen. Nick turned her toward him. Good. Wolves who believe they already know how to rule are usually the least qualified. His expression became serious. But understand this. The moment you accepted my claim, you placed a larger target on your back than anything you faced at dinner. His thumb brushed her waist. Every wolf who hates my rule will view you as the weakness they can exploit. Then I will prove I am not weak. Nick's smile held pride and danger. That is my queen, he kissed her forehead. Come, you have a court to address. And your first decree to make. The throne room was more intimidating than the dining hall. Black marble rose beneath silver pillars. The ceiling disappeared into shadow. At the far end stood 2 thrones. Nick's had always been occupied. The second had remained empty through every year of his reign. Until now, Celeste walked beside him in a midnight blue gown embroidered with silver stars. A circlet of moonstones rested on her head, matching Natasha's ring on her finger. The crown felt impossibly heavy. So did every gaze following her down the aisle. Some wolves wondered how long she would last. Some expected Nick to grow bored. Some waited for the former slave to stumble beneath royal silk. Celeste lifted her chin. She had endured an auction, silver chains, bond torture. A court filled with enemies. She would not be defeated by a throne. Nick took his seat. Then he gestured toward the smaller throne beside him, her place. Celeste sat. The entire court knelt. Hundreds of powerful wolves bowed before the Omega nobody had wanted. Rise, Nick commanded. They obeyed as one. You have heard the proclamation, he said. Queen Celeste is my fated mate, chosen by the moon goddess and claimed under sacred law. His gaze moved through the chamber. Her word is my word. Her authority is my authority. Cold warning entered his voice. Any wolf who disrespects her disrespects the crown. He turned toward Celeste. My queen has requested the honor of issuing her first royal proclamation. Every eye shifted to her. Pressure settled across Celeste's shoulders. This was the moment that would decide whether she became another beautiful ornament beside Nick's throne, or a queen capable of changing the realm. She stood. I come from Silver Pine Pack, she began. Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. My father was Beta Harold Anderson. Some of you knew him. Some fought him when His Majesty unified the territories. The court remained silent. I watched my father burn rather than surrender. Celeste felt Nick's attention on her, unwavering. For years, I hated the Alpha King. I hated him for destroying my home, for taking my family, for turning Omegas into official property. Unease moved through the room. But during the past 3 days, I learned that the old world was not the paradise I remembered, she thought of Natasha. It was a beautiful lie built upon the suffering of wolves like me. Her voice grew stronger. Omegas were property long before the crown admitted it. They were beaten, sold, violated, and driven to death by a system that called itself honorable while treating half the realm as disposable. She looked toward Nick. His Majesty burned that system to ash, then back to the court. But he built something cold in its place, something that still calls Omega's property. The silence deepened. At least now, the cruelty is honest. Celeste drew a breath. That changes today, whispers began before she had finished. By my first decree as Alpha Queen, every Omega carrying the mark of the crown is placed under my direct protection. Her words rang across black marble. Any Alpha or Beta who harms an Omega without lawful cause will answer to me personally. The whispers grew. Any Omega may petition my court to appeal an unsafe placement, and any wolf, regardless of designation, who demonstrates exceptional service may request consideration for freedom. Shock rippled through the chamber. Celeste raised her voice above it. I am also establishing a Queen's Council composed of Omegas from every territory. They will meet monthly and advise the Crown on laws that affect their designation. She held the court's gaze. Their recommendations will be heard in every future policy decision. Your Majesty, Lynn Donovan rose. Her expression was carefully controlled. Granting Omega such influence may destabilize the hierarchy His Majesty fought to establish. It sends a message, Lynn continued, that this crown values every wolf, Celeste interrupted. Not only the strongest, Lynn's jaw tightened. Celeste met her stare. Unless you believe the moon goddess erred when she chose an Omega as the Alpha King's equal, the trap closed. Lynn could not oppose the decree without challenging divine law. Of course not, Your Majesty, she forced out. I merely question the danger of rapid change. Stagnation is also dangerous, Celeste replied. I would rather risk progress than protect continued suffering. Then she turned toward Nick. Unless His Majesty rejects my decree, the court became absolutely still. This was the first true test of his promise. Would Nick listen when she challenged the system he had built? Or had his vows beneath the citadel been spoken only to keep her? Mick rose slowly. Power filled the room with him. My queen has spoken. His voice carried complete certainty. Her decree stands. His gaze moved toward Lynn and the other alphas. Anyone who challenges it, challenges me. His smile was colder than winter. And you all know how I answer challenges. No one spoke again. The Queen's Council will convene next week, Nick continued. Roman will oversee the selection of representatives from every territory. He looked at Celeste with pride, surprise, and perhaps a small amount of fear over what he had placed beside his throne. Is there anything else, my queen? Celeste thought of Priscilla. Of every Omega catalogued and assigned to a master. One final order. Her voice softened. I want a complete accounting of every Omega owned by the Crown. Names, locations, conditions, complaints. She looked into the faces below. I will begin reviewing placements immediately. That announcement caused greater alarm than the first. The court understood what it meant. The new queen did not intend to make symbolic promises. She intended to interfere, to investigate, to remove Omegas from powerful households. Nick lifted one hand. Silence returned. The records will be delivered to the queen, he said. Court is dismissed. The wolves filed away slowly, already whispering about rebellion, reform, and the dangerous Omega now wearing a crown. When the throne room finally emptied, Celeste braced herself. Nick turned toward her. Then he laughed. Goddess above. He pulled her against him. I give you a crown, and within an hour you begin dismantling my entire government. Are you angry? She asked carefully. Angry? Nick tilted her chin upward. His eyes held genuine amusement and admiration. I am terrified. Celeste blinked. You gained the loyalty of nearly every Omega in the territories while making enemies of half my commanders. His mouth curved. You began a social revolution before breakfast. He kissed her hard. And I have never been more certain the moon goddess knew exactly what she was doing. Relief moved through Celeste. So you support the changes? I support you, Nick corrected. Even when your compassion threatens the order I created. His expression became grave. But the changes will cause instability. Wolves who benefited from the old structure will resist. His hand tightened at her waist. They will attack you first. Then I will prove them wrong. You will. Nick brushed his forehead against hers. And I will stand beside you when they come. He released her hand only to take it again. But first, you need to understand the size of the enemy. Nick led Celeste into the lower levels of the citadel. The corridors became colder and darker until they reached an iron door sealed with 2 bloodlocks. Nick pressed his palm to one. Celeste placed hers against the second. Both locks opened together. Bound to their completed mate bond, beyond lay a chamber filled from floor to ceiling with ledgers and filing cabinets, rows upon rows, thousands of records. The accounting you requested, Nick said quietly. Every Omega claimed as crown property since I took the throne. Celeste entered slowly. 8 years of lives were stored in neat handwriting. Nick removed one ledger and opened it. Green tabs indicate a stable placement, household service, skilled work, or conditions considered relatively safe. He turned several pages. Yellow means questionable. Complaints exist, but nothing has been proven. Then he touched a red marker. Red means immediate danger. Celeste saw too many red pages. And black? She asked. Nick opened another ledger. A name had been crossed through with a single line. Dead. The word landed like stone. Some from illness, some from accidents. His face became hard. And some because an alpha forgot that crown property still belonged to the crown. Nausea climbed Celeste's throat. How many black tabs? Too many. Nick closed the book. I executed 17 alphas for killing Omegas without authorization. I made examples of them. Bitterness entered his voice. But it continues. Because property remains disposable, no matter whose name appears on the deed. He moved behind Celeste and wrapped both arms around her. This is what you are fighting. His voice was low against her hair. Not merely me, not merely several cruel alphas. He looked at the endless ledgers. You are fighting a belief so deeply rooted that mass enslavement was considered an improvement. His hold tightened. And you plan to defeat it with council meetings, petitions, and compassion. Do you believe I cannot? Celeste asked. Nick turned her in his arms. I believe you may be the only wolf brave or foolish enough to attempt it. His expression was brutally honest. But change will take years, perhaps decades. Wolves will suffer while you work. Some will die before you reach them. He held her gaze. You will have to live with the knowledge that you cannot save everyone. The truth hurt because it contained no manipulation. Celeste looked at the thousands of names. Natasha had died because the old system was too large for one frightened Omega to challenge. I may not save all of them, Celeste said, but I can save some. Her hand rested over Natasha's ring. And some is better than none, she faced Nick. You asked me to become your conscience. This is what that means. Her voice strengthened. Even if reform takes my entire life, it remains worth beginning. Nick studied her. Then he smiled. A small, sad, genuine smile. You are going to break my heart, little queen, he kissed her forehead. But perhaps that is fair. I destroyed your world, his thumb touched her cheek. Now you may destroy me. Celeste smiled faintly. Then we begin with the red placements, Nick nodded. Immediate danger first, then yellow. Green can wait. And the Queen's Council remains. It remains. His expression turned severe. But the moment Omegas gain hope, every alpha who fears losing control will mark you as an enemy. You do not possess 8 years of terror protecting your name. Then I will create my own reputation. Celeste's voice held more confidence than she felt. As the queen who protects all her subjects, Nick laughed and drew her close. Magnificent. He kissed her. And horrifying. When they separated, Celeste's gaze moved across the ledgers. Priscilla? Nick said. Her heart stopped. You noticed? I noticed you searching every Omega face at dinner. Nick chose a ledger and moved through the pages with practiced speed. Then he stopped. Priscilla Anderson, claimed 3 months ago, Celeste stepped beside him. Assigned to Beta Greg Donnelly in the Southern Territories. A yellow tab marked the page. No formal complaints, Nick said, but Donnelly has been watched for rumors of rough treatment. Fear and fury collided inside Celeste. I want her brought here. Done, Nick wrote the order in the margin. Royal Guards leave at dawn. Donnelly will not refuse a direct command from the Queen. He looked at Celeste. But he will view it as interference. Another reason to resent your authority. Let him. Her voice became fierce. Priscilla is my sister. If he harmed her, he will answer to me. And to me, Nick added. His smile became predatory. Whatever punishment you devise, I assure you mine will be worse if he damaged someone protected by the crown. Celeste gave him a look. Is that our method now? Perfect partnership, Nick offered his arm. You provide compassion. I provide terrifying violence. Despite the ledgers, the enemies, and the impossible work ahead, Celeste laughed. I reserve the right to become terrifying occasionally. Please do. Watching you destroy Lynn Donovan with words remains one of the finest moments of my reign. They left the record chamber together. As they climbed toward daylight, the crown no longer felt quite as foreign on Celeste's head. She had earned the throne through pain, blood, and refusal. Now she would use it to tear apart the system Nick created and build something better from the ruins, even if it required a lifetime. Even if every powerful alpha became her enemy. Even if her only ally was the monster walking beside her. His hand warm inside hers. His soul forever bound to her own. Chapter 7. The sisters return. 3 days later, Priscilla arrived at the Citadel. Celeste waited inside the receiving hall with her hands clenched so tightly that her nails cut into her palms. Nick stood beside her, silent and solid, the one steady thing inside the chaos of her new life. In 72 hours, Celeste had reviewed hundreds of files, begun building the Queen's Council, and angered more powerful alphas than she could count. None of that mattered now. The great doors opened. Royal Guards entered. A familiar figure walked between them. Celeste's heart broke. Priscilla had once been radiant. Golden hair, bright blue eyes, the kind of beauty that caused an entire room to turn when she entered. The woman approaching now was a shadow. Her hair was dull and tangled. Her skin appeared too pale over bones that had become painfully visible, but her eyes were the worst, empty, as though someone had reached inside her and extinguished every light. Priscilla, Celeste whispered. She moved forward. Her sister stared without recognition. Then something flickered. Celeste? The name emerged uncertainly. Is that truly you? Celeste closed the distance and wrapped her arms around her sister. Priscilla felt fragile, sharp shoulders, trembling limbs, barely any weight. Beneath soap and travel dust, she carried the scent of fear, pain, and Greg Donnelly's aggressive claim. I am here, Celeste murmured into her hair. You are safe now. Priscilla pulled back and searched her face. How are you here? Her gaze moved to the crown, the royal gown, and Nick standing behind Celeste like a protective shadow. I do not understand. We will explain after you eat and rest. Celeste looked toward Diane and Cherie. Take her to the guest chambers in my wing. Prepare a bath. Bring food. Summon the palace physician. Your wing? Priscilla repeated. Her confusion sharpened into shock. They said the Alpha Queen had summoned me, but I never imagined. Her eyes returned to Celeste's crown. Oh, goddess, the truth reached her. You are her, Celeste nodded. I am the queen. Then she took Priscilla's cold hand. And you are my sister. That places you beneath the crown's direct protection. Her voice became fierce. No one will ever hurt you again. Priscilla's knees failed. Diane caught her. Come, dear, the older Omega said gently. You can understand the impossible parts after food and sleep. As Diane and Cherie led Priscilla away, She looked back repeatedly, as though Celeste might vanish if she stopped watching. Nick's hand settled at Celeste's lower back. She was badly abused, he said. I can smell the trauma. Celeste's voice turned to ice. Donnelly will answer for it. Good. Nick's smile became sharp. Because Beta Greg Donnelly is already waiting in the small council chamber, Celeste looked at him. I summoned him when the guards left to retrieve Priscilla. Nick turned her fully toward him. This is your first real test as queen. Not ceremony. Not a decree protected by my throne. His gaze hardened. Donnelly commands Southern Guard units and believes years of service make him untouchable. How you deal with him will tell every Alpha and Beta what kind of queen you intend to become. Celeste's heart accelerated. What would you do? Rip out his throat and leave the body in the courtyard, Nick answered without hesitation. But you are not me. His expression softened by a fraction. You are better than me. Therefore, you may find a solution involving less blood. Celeste nearly smiled despite her rage. Come with me. I may need you to prevent me from tearing out his throat, or hold him still while you do it, Nick offered. I remain flexible. Beta Greg Donnelly stood when they entered the council chamber. He was middle-aged, powerfully built, and carried the arrogance of a wolf who had spent years without consequences. Your Majesty, he acknowledged Nick first, then Celeste. Your Majesty. The slight was subtle, Nick noticed. My guards do not request attendance, he said, taking the chair at the head of the table. They deliver commands. He gestured to Celeste's seat beside him. My queen has questions regarding your treatment of Priscilla Anderson. Donnelly's jaw tightened. With respect, the Omega was assigned to my household 3 months ago. She was fed, clothed, and housed. No official complaint was filed. No complaint, Celeste said, because you terrified her into silence. She leaned forward. What did you do to my sister? Surprise flashed in his eyes. Your sister? Do not pretend ignorance will protect you, Celeste rose. I saw what 3 months beneath your authority did to her. I will ask once more. Power from the completed bond moved through her voice, giving an Omega's words the weight of an Alpha command. What did you do? Donnelly looked toward Nick. Nick only smiled. Answer the queen. The Beta's confidence cracked. She was difficult, disobedient. She spoke against orders and attempted to escape twice. His hands tightened at his sides. I disciplined her. Define discipline. Restricted meals. Confinement. Standard correction for an unruly Omega. Did you strike her? He hesitated. Too long. Only when verbal correction failed. Nothing that violated regulations. Nothing permanent. Leave. Celeste's voice struck like a whip. Donnelly blinked. Your Majesty? You have 1 hour to remove your possessions from the Citadel. She stood at full height. Your command of the Southern Guard is revoked. Your lands and titles returned to the crown. You are forbidden from holding authority over an Omega for the remainder of your life. His face lost color. You cannot do this. I served the crown loyally for years. You starved my sister, each word cut. You struck her until she no longer recognized herself. Celeste's eyes burned. And you dare call that loyalty? She leaned across the table. The only reason you leave without chains is because I am granting the mercy you denied Priscilla. Donnelly turned toward Nick in desperation. His Majesty will overturn this. You cannot allow her to strip me of everything over one difficult Omega. The room became cold. Nick rose. You made 2 mistakes. He crossed the chamber with lethal calm. First, you questioned my queen's authority. He stopped inches away. Second, you referred to a wolf beneath direct royal protection as one difficult Omega. Nick seized Donnelly by the throat and slammed him against the wall hard enough to crack stone. My queen's word is law. And I will never overturn a judgment that protects an Omega from a wolf like you. Donnelly clawed at Nick's wrist. You now have 30 minutes. Nick's silver eyes became merciless. If I ever learn that you touched another Omega, crown-owned or free, I will hunt you myself. His grip tightened. And you will pray that Celeste had killed you here, Donnelly managed a strangled nod. Mick released him. Your time begins now. The beta fled. When the door slammed, Celeste collapsed into her chair. Her body shook with delayed reaction. She had just removed a powerful commander, seized his property, and created an enemy who would spend the rest of his life seeking revenge. Mick knelt beside her. You did well. I acted because she is my sister. That is human. He kissed her forehead. But this is only the beginning. Every powerful wolf will hear what happened. Some will respect you. His expression darkened. Others will call it overreach. A few will test your decrees to discover whether you protect only your own blood. Then I will enforce them every time. Nick smiled proudly. My queen, he helped her stand. Now we need the physician's findings. If Donnelly concealed worse than he admitted, the predator returned to Nick's eyes. 30 minutes may be too generous. Dr. John Daniels met them in a medical office near the guest quarters. He was an older, gray-haired wolf who had served the palace for more than 20 years. His report was devastating. Multiple healed fractures, he said. Left wrist, 2 ribs, collarbone. The patterns indicate defensive injuries. Celeste gripped the chair. Scarring along the back, consistent with a belt or similar object. Prolonged malnutrition. Dr. Daniels paused. And evidence of recent sexual trauma. The world shifted beneath Celeste. A sound escaped her. Half sob, half growl. Nick caught her hand. Can you establish Donnelly's responsibility? He asked. His voice was controlled, but rage poured through the bond. The injuries occurred during her placement, Daniels replied. And Priscilla identified him directly. She stated he forced himself upon her 3 weeks ago and claimed it was his right as her master. That was not his right, Nick said. Every word sounded like broken glass. Use of crown property for sexual purposes requires explicit permission from the throne. Donnelly knew the law, Celeste understood. He violated royal decree. Treason, Nick confirmed. He issued orders immediately. Roman will send guards to intercept him before he leaves the grounds. Donnelly is to be taken to the dungeons in silver chains. Nick looked at Celeste. He will not escape this. What happens now? She asked. What you choose, Nick cupped her cheek. Execution, imprisonment, public humiliation. He wronged your sister and defied the crown. His voice lowered. You decide his fate. I enforce it. Celeste thought of Priscilla's hollow eyes, of every Omega abused by wolves who believed authority placed them beyond judgment. Public trial, she said. Nick listened. I want the physician's evidence read before the Citadel. If Priscilla is able, I want her testimony heard. Her voice hardened. Then I want Donnelly executed in the courtyard. Nick's smile was sharp. Brutal. He kissed Celeste's temple. Effective. The trial will take place tomorrow at noon. Celeste turned toward Dr. Daniels. Thank you for treating her as though she mattered. The physician's expression softened. Every patient matters, Your Majesty, he closed the report. It is good to serve a queen who remembers that Omegas are patients, not merely damaged property to be repaired. Priscilla lay curled beneath blankets in the guest chamber. A nightgown hung loosely around her thin frame. Diane sat nearby with needlework while Cherie arranged medicine on a table. She has asked for you every few minutes, Diane whispered. She is afraid this is a dream. Celeste sat beside her sister. Priscilla's eyes opened instantly. It is truly me, Celeste said. I am still here. How? Priscilla whispered. The last time I saw you, the pack house was burning. Soldiers dragged us in different directions. Her voice broke. I thought they killed you. They took me to auction, Celeste explained. That is where I met Nick. Priscilla's eyes widened. He is my fated mate. Celeste took her hand carefully. The moon goddess bound us. Through circumstances I will explain when you are stronger, I became his queen. The Alpha King? Disbelief filled Priscilla's face. The wolf who destroyed Silver Pine? Who killed father? Yes. Celeste did not hide from the truth. He has done terrible things. He is complicated, wounded, and often cruel. She drew a slow breath. But he is trying. We are trying to build something better than either world that came before. Does he know about Donnelly? He knows everything. Celeste's fingers tightened around hers. There will be a public trial tomorrow. Donnelly will answer for every injury. She held Priscilla's gaze. Then he will be executed. You are going to kill him for me. I am going to ensure he never hurts another Omega. Celeste paused. If you want a different judgment. No. Strength returned to Priscilla's voice for the first time. I want him dead, her eyes filled with tears. I want every wolf like him to see that we are not bodies to use and throw away. Then fear returned. But there is something you must know. Celeste waited. Donnelly said Father sold me to him before the conquest. The chamber seemed to tilt. He said Father owed gambling debts and promised 17 Omegas as payment. Priscilla's voice shook. Including me, the sale had failed only because Nick's army arrived first and claimed every Omega for the crown. Roman had revealed the truth. Nick had confirmed it through the bond, but hearing it from Priscilla destroyed the final fragment of denial. I remembered the strange alphas who visited Father, Priscilla continued. The private meetings, Mother becoming quiet, tears ran down her face. Our father was a monster too, Celeste. Different from Nick, but still a monster. Celeste gathered her sister carefully into her arms. They grieved together, not only for a dead father, for the man they had believed he was, for the childhood built upon another beautiful lie. We cannot change what he did, Celeste said at last, but we can make certain his world does not continue. She drew back. That is what I am trying to do with the crown. Give Omegas protection, voice, choice. And the Alpha King supports you? He does, Celeste smiled sadly. Because I believe he is as tired of being a monster as we are of being victims. Priscilla studied her. You love him. It was not a question. Celeste could not deny it. The bond hummed beneath her skin. Distance from Nick felt like a slow loss of breath. She challenged his laws while finding herself defending the broken wolf beneath them. I do, she gave a helpless laugh. It is impossible and probably insane, but I love the monster who destroyed our world. Her smile faded into determination. And I will spend my life reminding him he can become more than the terror he created. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard, Priscilla said. Then a small, damaged, real smile appeared. Which means it is probably exactly what the moon goddess intended. Celeste laughed softly. She has a twisted sense of humor. Priscilla's eyelids began to close beneath the medicine. You were always the strong one, she murmured. Not me. That is not true. You survived by becoming invisible. Now everyone sees you. Her voice faded. You will be a great queen, Celeste. You are going to change everything. Rest, Celeste whispered, tucking the blanket around her. Tomorrow, we receive justice. Priscilla was asleep before she finished. Celeste remained beside her, watching every fragile breath and making promises she intended to keep. Then she rose and went to find Nick. Tomorrow, they would execute a traitor. Tomorrow, every wolf in the realm would learn what happened when someone defied the Alpha Queen. But tonight, Celeste needed to be held by the only wolf who understood the terrible weight of power. Chapter 8. The Trial of Beta Donnelly. The courtyard was filled before noon. Every Alpha, Beta, and Omega inside the Citadel had gathered around a raised tribunal platform. Guards stood along the perimeter with hands near their weapons. Above the crowd, Celeste and Nick sat upon temporary thrones beneath the merciless morning sun. At the base of the platform, Greg Donnelly knelt in silver chains. His expensive clothing had been torn during his arrest. Bruises marked his face. The arrogance he had carried into the council chamber was gone. Now he looked exactly what he was, a criminal awaiting judgment. Roman Terry stood beside the platform holding a thick file of evidence. This tribunal is called to order, he announced. The courtyard fell silent. Beta Greg Donnelly is charged with unauthorized sexual assault of Crown property, physical abuse resulting in serious injury, theft of royal resources through deliberate withholding of food rations, and treason through violation of direct Crown law. Shock passed through the crowd. Treason carried only one sentence: death. "How do you plead?" Roman asked. Donnelly lifted his head toward Celeste. "Not guilty, Your Majesty. These accusations are fabricated. The Omega was difficult and known to." "Choose your next words carefully," Nick interrupted. His voice was colder than the chains around Donnelly's wrists. "If you accuse Priscilla Anderson of lying, I will have your tongue removed before the evidence is presented." Donnelly closed his mouth. He searched the gathered wolves for allies. Most looked away. Several powerful alphas watched without emotion, already calculating whether the new queen's justice might eventually reach them. "The accused pleads not guilty," Roman said. "The Crown will present its evidence." Dr. John Daniels approached first. He carried diagrams, written reports, and documented images of Priscilla's injuries. Several Omegas gasped when the evidence was displayed. "These injuries were recorded when Priscilla arrived at the Citadel," Daniels explained. "Multiple healed fractures consistent with defensive wounds, severe scarring caused by repeated strikes, prolonged malnutrition," he paused, "and medical evidence of forced sexual contact within the past month." Whispers became cries of outrage. Some Omegas wept openly. Even several hardened alphas shifted with visible discomfort. "Can we establish that these injuries occurred during her placement in Donnelly's household?" Roman asked. "I can. The healing periods match the 3-month assignment." Daniels looked toward the tribunal. "Priscilla also identified Greg Donnelly as the wolf responsible." "Objection!" Donnelly shouted. "Physician confidentiality makes that inadmissible." "Confidentiality is waived in suspected treason cases," Roman replied smoothly. "According to the royal code established 6 years ago," he held up a signed document, "Priscilla voluntarily authorized the release of her testimony." The objection died. Roman called the next witness. An older Omega named Owen Collins stepped forward. He had served in Donnelly's household for 2 years. His body trembled as he faced the crowd. "What did you witness?" Roman asked gently. Owen struggled for breath. "I saw him strike her." His voice shook. "With his fists. With a belt. If she answered too slowly or resisted an order, he would drag her into his private chambers." He swallowed hard. "We heard screaming. When she returned, she was bruised, bleeding, sometimes unconscious. Why did you not report this?" Owen looked at Roman as though the question itself revealed the cruelty of the system. "I am an Omega," his voice cracked. "Who would have listened?" Then he turned toward Celeste. "But the Queen is listening now. Perhaps that means something can finally change." Tears burned behind Celeste's eyes. She did not allow them to fall. Not while every wolf watched to see whether the former slave would break beneath the truth she had demanded. "Your courage will be remembered," Roman said. He turned toward Donnelly. "Do you wish to question the witness?" "He is lying," Donnelly spat. "Every Omega in my household resented discipline. This is a conspiracy encouraged by the Queen." "Careful," Nick said softly. The single word made wolves in the first row step backward. "You are already facing death. Do not add an insult against my mate to your crimes." Donnelly fell silent. 2 more Omega servants testified. Their accounts matched Owen's. Beatings, starvation, locked doors. Cries ignored because no one believed Crown property could demand justice. By the time Roman closed the file, even Donnelly's former allies refused to meet his eyes. "The Crown rests," Roman announced. Donnelly jerked against his chains. "I demand trial by combat. It is my right as a beta of standing." "Denied." Celeste's voice cut across the courtyard. She rose from her throne. "Trial by combat is permitted between equals." Her gaze held his. "You are not my equal." She descended the platform 1 measured step at a time. "You are a criminal who violated every law intended to protect the most vulnerable wolves in this realm." The crowd parted as she approached. You took a wolf beneath crown protection. Celeste stopped before him. My sister, her voice rose. You struck her, starved her, violated her. Donnelly lowered his gaze. You did it because you believed rank made you untouchable. Celeste crouched until they were eye to eye. You believed an Omega's pain carried no value. She stood again. You were wrong. Celeste turned toward the gathered court. I am the Alpha Queen, chosen by the Moon Goddess and bound to the strongest alpha in the territories. Power carried through her voice. And I declare that the days of treating Omegas as disposable are ending? She looked across alphas, betas, and servants alike. Not because every law can change in one day. Not because slavery disappears with one decree. Her expression hardened. But because I will destroy any wolf who mistakes reform for weakness. She faced Donnelly once more. Greg Donnelly, this tribunal finds you guilty of all charges. Silence held the courtyard. You are sentenced to death by beheading, to be carried out immediately. Celeste continued without hesitation. Your lands return to the crown. Your name will be removed from all records of honor. Your remains will be burned without ceremony. No wind moved. No wolf breathed loudly enough to be heard. Does anyone speak in his defense? Celeste asked. She waited. Not one wolf moved. Then the sentence stands. She looked toward Nick. Unless the king overturns my judgment. Nick rose and came down the steps. He stood beside her and took her hand in full view of the realm. My queen's judgment stands. His voice carried absolute finality. Let every territory understand. His silver gaze swept the crowd. This is what occurs when a wolf violates crown law. He tightened his fingers around Celeste. This is what occurs when reform is mistaken for softness. Nick's expression became predatory. The Alpha Queen is not weak. She is justice. He nodded toward the executioner. Proceed. Cliff Monroe, the Citadel's official executioner, stepped forward carrying a heavy axe. He positioned himself behind Donnelly with practiced efficiency. Celeste looked down at the condemned beta. Final words? Fear appeared in his eyes for the first time. I followed the old ways, he said. What alphas and betas have done for centuries. You cannot kill me for tradition. Yes, Celeste said quietly. I can, she held his stare. Because traditions built upon suffering deserve to die. Celeste thought of the choice she had made beneath the citadel. 3 days ago, I chose to remain beside the wolf who conquered this realm and help him build something better from its ashes. Her voice became cold. Your death marks the beginning of that world, she nodded to the executioner. May the moon goddess show the mercy I cannot. The axe fell. The sound echoed like thunder. Several Omegas began crying, not from grief, from release. For once, suffering had been acknowledged. For once, a powerful wolf had faced the same final consequence he had so casually imposed upon the powerless. Celeste turned away. Dispose of the remains as ordered, she commanded. Then she remembered the witness. Find Owen Collins. Reassign him to palace service under Diane. He will never return to a cruel household. Celeste climbed the platform and reclaimed her throne. Only then did she breathe. She had ordered a death. She had watched the sentence carried out, and she did not feel shattered. She felt powerful, righteous, as though her authority had finally been used for something that mattered. How do you feel? Nick asked through the bond. Concern softened his mental voice. Like a queen, Celeste answered. She looked toward him. Is that wrong? No. Nick squeezed her hand. Queens make decisions that carry blood. They protect their subjects even when protection requires violence. His eyes held hers. Do not apologize for justice. Roman climbed the platform after dismissing the crowd. Wolves moved away slowly. Some hurried to escape the sight and scent of death. Others remained long enough to look at Celeste with a new understanding. The plain Omega from Silver Pine had executed a powerful commander before the entire court. No one would underestimate her again. That was precisely the message required, Roman said. Uncompromising, public, final. He looked across the dispersing wolves. Every alpha now understands your reforms have teeth. Will it stop them? Celeste asked. Or only teach them to hide the abuse better? Some will hide, Roman admitted. Others will stop because the danger is no longer worth the reward. He inclined his head. Imperfect progress remains progress. A commotion near the gate drew their attention. Diane hurried toward the platform. Your Majesty, she said to Celeste. Priscilla watched from a tower window. Her expression was worried. She is not handling it well. She needs you. Celeste was moving before Diane finished. Mick followed. They found Priscilla sitting on the floor beside the bed, her back against the mattress, staring at nothing. Celeste dropped to her knees. Priscilla, speak to me. You killed him, her sister whispered. You truly killed him for me. He hurt you, Celeste said. He deserved judgment. But you were never violent. Priscilla's eyes filled with confusion and fear. You were the gentle sister. She looked toward Nick. What did he do to you? The accusation struck Celeste deeply. 3 days earlier, public execution would have horrified her. But the trials had changed her. The bond had changed her. Power had forced her to understand that protecting wolves sometimes meant choosing consequences she once believed unthinkable. He gave me power, Celeste said. I chose how to use it. She took Priscilla's hands. Donnelly's death belongs to me. I spoke the sentence. I watched it happen. Her voice remained calm. And I believed justice was served. Priscilla searched her face. I am still your sister, Celeste continued. Still the wolf who would do anything to protect you. You are a queen now, Priscilla said. There was grief in the realization. With everything that means, I do not know whether to thank you or fear what you are becoming. Both, Nick said. He knelt beside Celeste. Thank her for protecting you. Then his gaze moved to Celeste with pride. And fear what she is capable of when pushed. His voice was quiet but certain. Compassion backed by ruthlessness creates a powerful ruler. He rose and offered his hand to Celeste. Your sister will become one of the greatest queens this realm has seen. Celeste squeezed Priscilla's fingers before standing. Take time to understand what I have become. At the door, she paused. But know that I would choose the same sentence again. I would order 100 executions to protect wolves who have spent their lives invisible. She faced her sister. You said I was gentle. Celeste's crown caught the light. I was never gentle, Priscilla. I was unseen, her voice strengthened. And unseen wolves cannot protect anyone. She took Nick's hand. So I chose to be visible, to be feared, to become what this broken world requires. Celeste left the room with the weight of one death settling across her shoulders like armor. The first death ordered in her name, perhaps not the last. She had survived 3 nights to reach the throne. Now the entire realm was waiting to discover what she would do with it. Chapter 9. The Queen's Council. 1 week after Donnelly's execution, the Queen's Council gathered for the first time. Celeste had chosen a chamber that had remained unused for decades. The room was circular, with tall windows overlooking the territories. There was no head of the table, no throne, no seat raised above the others. 12 chairs formed a perfect ring. Each was occupied by an Omega chosen from a different region of the realm. They looked terrified. Celeste understood why. Most had never entered the Citadel. None had ever been summoned to advise the crown. Omegas were expected to obey policy, not shape it, until now. Thank you for coming, Celeste began. She remained standing within the circle rather than above it. I know many of you believe this may be a test. Nervous eyes shifted toward her. It is not, her voice softened. This council is real. Your voices matter. What is said inside this room will influence crown policy. A woman seated to Celeste's left lifted a trembling hand. Your Majesty. Why? Her name was Jo Shelton, representative of the Western Territories. Why would the crown give Omegas this power? What do you gain? Perspective, Celeste replied. She sat down so that every face remained level with hers. I have been queen for 7 days. I have reviewed hundreds of placements, removed dozens of omegas from dangerous households, and executed a beta for violating crown law. She looked around the circle. But I am one wolf. I cannot see every village, household, facility, or abuse. Celeste spread her hands. You represent different territories and different experiences. I need your eyes. Your knowledge. Your truth, another representative spoke. Ernesta Hendricks of the North was older than most and less frightened. What happens if our truth contradicts what the Alpha King wants to hear? Then I listen, Celeste said. And I take it to him. She did not offer a beautiful lie. I cannot promise every recommendation will become law immediately, but I promise that your experiences will no longer be ignored. Celeste leaned forward. So tell me what the reports do not. For a long moment, silence remained. Then Joe Shelton drew one breath. The food rations are being stolen. The first truth entered the room. In the Western Territories, local alphas sell part of the crown allocation. Omegas receive perhaps 60% of what is recorded. Celeste's fingers tightened around her writing tablet. Why has no complaint reached the palace? The last Omega who filed one disappeared. Celeste looked up. Reassigned? Joe shook her head. No transfer record, no death report. She vanished. Cold anger spread through Celeste. Give me her name and the wolves controlling distribution. I will investigate personally. Several representatives sat straighter. They had expected sympathy. They were hearing action. What else? Celeste asked. A young Omega named Angelo Conklin raised his hand. The breeding protocols. His voice was tight. For some of us, they are worse than death. The room became still. Fertile Omegas are assigned to breeding programs based on genetic compatibility with alphas. We are required to produce pups. His throat moved painfully. If someone refuses, they use drugs, restraints. Celeste felt nausea rise. The pups are removed after weaning. Angelo stared at the floor. Official records call the facilities nurseries. His voice became bitter. They are breeding farms. Celeste sensed Nick through the mate bond before she saw him. He stood in the doorway. She had not invited him. The room was intended to give Omegas freedom to speak without the Alpha King's power pressing upon them. But perhaps he needed to hear this without translation. Continue, Celeste told Angelo. His eyes moved nervously to Nick. Celeste nodded once. There are 3 facilities, Angelo said. Omegas remain for years. They are used until they cannot produce healthy pups, then assigned to hard labor. He removed a folded list. 37 are held in the southern facility. Some have been there 5 years, 7 years. His hands shook. One woman has been there since the program began. 8 years. 8 years of forced pregnancies. 8 years of children taken away. Every face turned toward Celeste. This was the test of whether her counsel was genuine, or merely a kinder form of deception. Celeste crossed the circle and accepted the list. Thank you, she said, for speaking when silence was safer. Then she looked at Nick. We need to talk. The argument began before they reached a private room. You knew, Celeste accused in the corridor. You knew the breeding facilities used force. I knew you would react exactly this way, Nick answered. Horror, moral outrage, demands to destroy a program without considering what it prevents. What it prevents? Celeste's voice rose. They are institutionalized rape facilities. The wolf population is collapsing. Nick shot back. For once, his control broke. 8 years of war destroyed entire packs. Birth numbers are insufficient to maintain the territories. He dragged a hand through his hair. You believe I enjoyed creating the program? His voice was raw. I chose controlled breeding over watching our species disappear. There are alternatives, Celeste faced him. Voluntary programs, financial support, protection for parents, incentives instead of force. And while those alternatives are designed, Nick demanded, what happens during another decade of population decline? He stepped closer. Within 50 years, there may not be enough wolves to maintain pack structures. Territory disputes begin, then war, then more dead. Celeste wanted to reject the argument, but the crisis was real. That did not make the solution acceptable. How many Omegas are inside those facilities? Nick's jaw tightened. 217. Celeste stared at him. 217 wolves reduced to reproductive tools because war had destroyed the population. I will visit every facility, she said. I want to see the conditions and speak to them without supervisors present. Nick's eyes hardened. Then I want authority to reform the program. Celeste, you promised to listen when I told you that you were wrong. Her voice became quiet and dangerous. I am telling you now. This is wrong, she held his gaze. If our species can survive only through systematic violation, then perhaps it does not deserve survival. Nick stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, sadness softened his face. You will be the death of me, little queen, his mouth curved faintly. But we will visit, he raised a warning hand. You may inspect, question, and propose reforms, but do not dismantle the program before creating a viable alternative. His expression became grave. Good intentions can still begin wars, Celeste breathed out slowly. It was not complete victory. It was a door. Agreed, Nick touched her cheek. Do you know why I entered the council? To intimidate everyone? Partly, his smile returned, and partly because I know I have lost the ability to see certain forms of suffering. The admission surprised her. I needed to hear them without filters. Then his gaze darkened with heat. And watching you fight for Omegas with the same ferocity I used to defend territory is deeply distracting. Celeste stared at him. You are insane, probably. He kissed her forehead. But I am your insane monster. He offered his hand. Come, let us return and discover what other horrors my reign has produced. The meeting continued for 3 more hours. Each revelation cut deeper. Medical treatment delayed because Omegas were considered less valuable. Sexual harassment concealed because reporting it risked reassignment. Pups born to crown-owned mothers automatically registered as royal property, creating generations separated from their parents. Celeste filled 5 tablets with notes. The system harmed Omegas in more ways than she had imagined possible, yet something changed inside the room as the hours passed. The representatives stopped trembling. They began interrupting one another, debating solutions, proposing new policies, challenging details. They behaved as though their voices mattered, because for the first time, they did. This has been painful, Celeste said when the meeting neared its end. But it has also been more useful than months of official reports. The council watched her. Here is what happens next, she stood. First, we investigate the missing Omega and the stolen Western rations. Celeste looked toward Angelo. Second, I inspect all 3 breeding facilities and develop immediate reform proposals. Then she faced the entire circle. Third, this council becomes permanent. Hope moved across the room. We meet every month. You bring truth. I bring progress reports. Together, we push this realm toward something better. And if the alphas resist? Joe asked. Then we speak to me. Celeste's smile became sharp. I will explain that authority does not include the right to systematic oppression. Her expression hardened. You witnessed Donnelly's judgment. That was not an exception. She allowed the silence to carry her promise. It was a warning. Ernesto raised one hand. Your Majesty, Omegas in the territories are already suffering retaliation because of your reforms. Celeste's chest tightened. Alphas punish their servants when news of the council reaches them. They cannot reach you, so they hurt the wolves beneath them. Celeste had anticipated political opposition. She had not fully considered that hope itself could provoke violence. Document every incident, she said. Names, dates, injuries, locations. Her tone became firm. Tell them the Queen sees them. Tell them help is coming. Ernesto's eyes remained sad. They will need more than words. Then we will give them proof. Celeste turned toward Nick. The king and I will tour the territories personally. Nick stepped into the circle. The tour begins next week, he announced. We will inspect placements and meet local leaders in every major region. His presence filled the chamber. Any wolf found retaliating against crown property will face immediate punishment. He looked at the council members. My queen's reforms possess my full support. Nick's voice was absolute. I do not agree with every method. I do not enjoy every change. His gaze moved to Celeste. But I gave her authority, and I stand behind the way she uses it. Then he faced the council again. Carry that message home. The king and queen are united, the representatives understood. This was not political theater. Celeste and Nick argued. They disagreed. They forced each other to compromise. But the bond between them created a partnership no faction could easily divide. Thank you for your courage, Celeste said as the meeting ended. You gave me the tools to begin real change. One by one, the council members left. They were still frightened, but they walked taller. Roman appeared in the doorway. Productive? Devastating, Celeste corrected. She sank into a chair. Every policy is worse than I believed. Breeding facilities, missing omegas, stolen rations, retaliatory abuse. She looked at Roman. How do I repair a system this broken without causing more harm? Roman sat beside her. The way one consumes a feast, Celeste frowned. One bite at a time, he spoke practically. Prioritize the breeding facilities because the violation is greatest. Then ration theft because it is actively killing wolves. After that, work through the remaining issues according to urgency. And while I work, omegas continue suffering. They suffer less than before you became queen, Roman replied. That is progress. Nick sat on Celeste's other side and took her hand. You are attempting to reverse 8 years of oppression in 7 days. His voice softened. You cannot save everyone at once. If you try, you will destroy yourself before helping them. Celeste looked between them. Pragmatism on one side, brutal honesty on the other. Both were right. She could not save every wolf, but she could save the next one, then the next. We begin with the breeding facilities, she said. Then the territory tour, the ration investigation, retaliation cases. One bite at a time, Roman agreed. One more decision, Celeste said. Nick waited. I want Priscilla as my personal advisor on Omega affairs. She is still recovering, Nick warned. I know, Celeste's expression became thoughtful. But healing is not always found in hiding. She needs purpose. She understands what the system does to a wolf in ways even I do not. Roman smiled slightly, giving her power over the structure that broke her. Exactly. She may not be ready, Nick said. No, Celeste admitted. But I believe she will rise. Her voice held conviction. We are Anderson women, Nick's eyebrow lifted. Anderson women do not break. Celeste's smile sharpened. We burn broken worlds and build better ones from the ashes. Nick laughed. The moon goddess gave me a queen with compassion wrapped around a spine of steel. He kissed Celeste's hand. I remain uncertain whether I am blessed or cursed. Both, she replied. Definitely both. In that circular chamber overlooking a realm desperate for reform, Celeste accepted that changing the world would be painful, imperfect, and slow. But every rescued wolf mattered. Every changed law mattered. Every day she awakened with power in her hands was another day she could keep the promise she had made on the auction block. She would tear down the system Nick created. And together, they would build something better. Chapter 10. The breeding facility. The southern breeding facility was hidden in plain sight. A converted estate stood behind high walls at the edge of the territory. Guards examined royal credentials twice before opening the gates. The grounds were clean. The buildings were maintained. From outside, it appeared almost peaceful. Inside, it was a nightmare disguised as efficiency. Celeste walked through corridors that smelled of disinfectant and fear. Nick remained silent beside her. Roman followed with a tablet, documenting every detail. The facility director, Beta Richard Hines led the tour with visible pride. We maintain the highest operational standards, he explained. Regular medical examinations, nutritional programs, exercise schedules designed to optimize reproductive health. They passed dormitory rooms containing rows of identical beds. Our successful live birth rate is 73%, far above the original projection. Successful rate, Celeste repeated. Her voice remained carefully neutral. You mean forced pregnancies resulting in live births? Richard's smile faltered. We use the term scheduled reproduction. Forced implies coercion, Your Majesty. In truth, we are fulfilling the Crown's population recovery mandate. Celeste stopped walking. Show me where omegas are taken when they refuse. Unease flashed in his eyes. Perhaps the medical wing should come first. We have several impressive innovations. Show me. Her voice dropped. The place you send omegas who say no. Richard looked toward Nick. The king's face gave him nothing. This way, the beta said at last. He led them into a separate wing. Celeste knew the moment she crossed the threshold. The air was heavier. A chemical scent hung beneath the disinfectant. Locks had been fitted to the outside of every door. From somewhere ahead came a low sob, not crying, something beyond language, a sound created when hope had been exhausted. This is the compliance adjustment wing, Richard explained defensively, for subjects displaying persistent resistance. Subjects, Celeste repeated. We employ counseling, pharmaceutical intervention, and, when necessary, gentle coercion to help them understand their duty. Define gentle coercion. Richard tightened his jaw. Sedation during scheduled reproduction. It reduces psychological trauma. Most do not remember afterward. He seemed to believe this defended him. We consider it merciful. Celeste felt the corridor shift beneath her feet. Nick's palm found her back, steadying her. Through the mate bond, his rage struck hers with equal force. Open that door, Celeste commanded. She pointed toward the room where the sobbing continued. The occupant is currently undergoing adjustment. Open it. Richard fumbled with the keys. The door revealed a small room, one narrow bed, restraints hanging from the frame. A young omega curled in the corner, eyes glazed beneath heavy medication. Celeste recognized the name from Angelo's list. The woman had been trapped in the program for 8 years. Celeste crouched several feet away so she would not appear threatening. What is your name? The omega struggled to focus. Amy. Her voice was slurred. Amy Smith. She glanced toward Richard. They call me Subject 17. Celeste's heart contracted. How many times have they drugged you? Amy looked at the floor. I stopped counting. A tear moved down her cheek. 20, maybe 30. She drew her knees closer. They say I should be grateful, that I am helping rebuild the population. Her mouth trembled. But I wanted to teach. Celeste remained still. Before the conquest, I was studying to become a teacher. Something inside Celeste changed. It did not break. It hardened. She rose and faced Richard with a calm smile that caused him to step backward. You are removed from office. His face changed. Effective immediately, Celeste looked toward Roman. Take Director Hines into custody. Charges: systematic sexual assault, unauthorized drugging of Crown property, abuse, and conspiracy to commit treason. Richard went white. I followed royal mandates. He turned desperately toward Nick. This was your program. Your order. Tell her. Nick stepped forward. My order was to address population decline. His voice became soft and lethal. I did not order you to drug omegas into submission. He looked into the room. I did not order you to replace names with numbers. Nick seized Richard by the collar and lifted him from the ground. I did not order you to imprison a woman who wanted to teach for 8 years and call her Subject 17. Richard's feet kicked helplessly. You turned a brutal solution into a torture system and used duty as your shield. Nick threw him at Roman's feet. You will answer for every wolf you destroyed in my name. He looked to Roman. Use standard interrogation. Identify every complicit staff member. every official who knew about the drugs, and every alpha who requested specific omegas. His eyes became colder. I want the complete list within 72 hours. Roman hauled Richard upright as guards arrived. With pleasure, Your Majesty. When the protesting beta was taken away, Celeste returned to Amy. Can you stand? I think so, Amy tried. Her legs failed beneath medication and disuse. Celeste caught her before she struck the floor. This facility is closing, Celeste said. All 3 facilities are closing, effective immediately. Amy stared at her. Every Omega will be moved into temporary royal housing, then offered placements based upon choice and safety. Celeste helped her sit on the bed. And if you still wish to become a teacher, the Crown will pay for your education. Amy's eyes widened. Full tuition, housing, whatever support you need to rebuild the life this system stole. Why? The question carried years of disbelief. Why would a queen do that for me? Because 8 years ago, my sister could have been sent here. Celeste took Amy's hand. Because I could have become Subject 17, she squeezed gently. The difference between us was luck, timing, and the moon goddess's cruel humor. Her voice softened. And because you deserve more than this, Celeste stood and addressed the guards. Tell every wing. Scheduled reproduction ends now. No more sedatives, no more numbers. Power carried through her words. Every Omega gets their name back. One guard hesitated. Your Majesty, the population crisis remains. Then we find another solution. Celeste faced him. We fund voluntary family programs, provide child care, housing, education. Make parenthood possible for wolves who want it. She looked toward Nick. We do this correctly, or we do not do it. Nick's gaze moved from Amy to the restraints, then back to Celeste. You heard your queen, his voice carried through the corridor. Shut down all 3 facilities, he turned toward the guards. Any employee who resists will be investigated for complicity. The following 8 hours became controlled chaos. Celeste met all 37 Omegas inside the southern estate. Some had arrived 6 months earlier. Others had been imprisoned since the program began. Their stories carried different details and the same wound. Bodies treated as machinery, children taken, identity erased beneath schedules, numbers, and medical charts. Yet beneath the fear, Celeste saw something fragile awakening. Hope. They had heard promises before, but this queen was opening the doors while she spoke. By sunset, royal carriages transported the Omegas toward the Citadel, where Dr. Daniels and an expanded medical team waited. Orders reached the northern and eastern facilities. All procedures ceased immediately. Richard Hines began naming officials from his dungeon cell. Administrators. Guards. Alphas who had requested particular Omegas. Wolves who had read sanitized reports and chosen not to ask questions. Celeste stood inside the empty main dormitory. The beds were perfectly made. The floor shone. Everything had been designed to look humane. She had never hated a room more. I enabled this, Nick said. His voice was rough. Celeste turned. I created the policy that allowed Richard to build this place. He stared at the rows of beds. I knew reproduction was forced. I called it necessary. I accepted reports because they told me the program worked. Guilt hollowed his expression. I should have come here. He looked at Celeste. This is what you meant when you said I became the thing I hated. Nick's jaw tightened. I destroyed the old system because it treated Omegas as property. His laugh held no humor. Then I built the same system with more efficient records. Yes, Celeste answered. She would not soften the truth. Then she crossed to him and held his face between her hands. But that is why I am here. His silver eyes met hers. Not to punish you with constant opposition. A sad smile touched her mouth. Perhaps partially. Then her expression became serious. The goddess gave you the conscience you lost during 8 years of survival. She touched her forehead to his. You made choices that harmed thousands. You must own that. Nick closed his eyes. But you are also the reason I have authority to end them. You gave me a crown and did not silence me when I used it against your own policies." She kissed him, softly, fiercely. "You enabled this horror. And now you are enabling the solution." Nick pulled her into his arms and buried his face against her hair. "I do not deserve you." "Probably not," Celeste held him. "But the moon goddess does not deal in deserving." Her voice became quiet. "She deals in necessity." Nick tightened his embrace. "And apparently, we are necessary to one another." "You give me power," Celeste said. "I keep you from becoming a monster wearing it." They stood together inside the wreckage of good intentions turned monstrous. "What happens now?" Nick asked. "Now we return to the Citadel and solve population decline without systematic violation." Celeste counted the beginning of the plan. Crown-funded support for parents, child care, housing, education stipends, voluntary incentives. "That will require years," Nick warned. "A fortune. And it may fail." "Then it takes years, costs a fortune, and may fail." Celeste looked toward the room where Amy had been held. "But at least it will not require drugging young women who wanted to become teachers." Nick laughed bitterly. "You will bankrupt my treasury with compassion." "Our treasury," Celeste corrected. "And yes, possibly." She touched Natasha's ring. "I would rather rule a poor realm with a conscience than a wealthy one built upon tortured omegas." Nick watched her. "That is why you will become a better queen than I ever was a king." They returned to the Citadel near midnight. Medical teams processed the rescued omegas. It would take weeks to assess all 217 victims from the 3 facilities, but the work had begun. Priscilla waited inside their private chambers. It was the first time she had voluntarily sought Celeste since the execution. "You did it," she said. "You closed them." "All 3, Celeste sank into a chair while Nick remained beside her. "The consequences will be difficult. We removed a major source of population growth without an immediate replacement." "Let the alphas panic," Priscilla said fiercely. Some of her old fire had returned. "You saved hundreds of wolves from hell." She sat across from them. "That matters more than statistics." Then she drew a breath. "I have considered your offer," Celeste waited. "I want the position as advisor on Omega affairs. You are still healing." "I may never finish healing," Priscilla interrupted. Her voice trembled but did not fail. "What Donnelly did is part of me. I cannot remove it." She leaned forward. "But I can choose what I create from it." Determination filled her eyes. "I can hide, or I can ensure another Omega does not suffer the same way." Celeste saw not the hollow woman who arrived under guard, but a wolf reshaped by pain into purpose. "The position is yours," she said. "Official appointment tomorrow. You will work with me and the Queen's Council." "One condition," Priscilla replied. "I want full access to the placement records, complaints, death reports. Every black tab, done." Celeste glanced at Nick. "Unless His Majesty objects." "My queen has decided," Nick said. "And today taught me that challenging her judgment on Omega welfare wastes valuable breath." He looked at Priscilla. "You receive full access. Roman will coordinate." Nick offered Celeste his hand. "You need rest, little queen?" Celeste stood, then turned back to her sister. "Thank you for choosing to fight." Her voice softened. "For turning pain into purpose." Priscilla smiled. "Still fragile, still haunted, but real. We are Anderson women," she repeated Celeste's words. "We do not break. We burn the world and build something better from the ashes." Celeste gave a small laugh. "I invented that family motto 3 hours ago." Priscilla stared. "But it sounds impressive, so let us pretend Mother taught it to us." Priscilla laughed. The sound was tentative and damaged, but it existed. That was enough. Later, Celeste stood on the balcony beneath a full moon. Nick's arms wrapped around her from behind while silver light covered the territories. "What are you thinking?" he asked. 2 weeks ago, I was an unwanted Omega on an auction platform. Celeste leaned into him. Now I am queen. I executed a commander, created a permanent council, closed 3 breeding facilities, and challenged the foundation of your reign. She shook her head. It is madness. It is magnificent, Nick corrected. His arms tightened. You are magnificent, compassionate, terrifying, relentless. I am dismantling everything you built, especially because you are dismantling it. Nick turned her to face him. What I built was necessary in places. His expression held regret. But necessity is not goodness. It kept wolves alive without giving them a reason to value that life. He touched her cheek. You are creating something that may deserve loyalty instead of demanding obedience through fear. Celeste looked at the man before her, the conqueror who enslaved thousands, the king who allowed torture in the name of survival, the brother who broke the world because it killed Natasha, and the mate who stood beside Celeste while she held him accountable for every terrible choice. I love you, she said. The words surprised them both. Nick became still. I love you because you are terrible and honest and broken. She placed her palm over his heart. Because you gave me power and allowed me to turn it against you. Celeste held his gaze. You are not a good wolf, Nick Skinner. A faint smile moved across his mouth. But you are mine. Her fingers pressed against his chest. And belonging to me means you will answer for every monstrous decision for the rest of our lives. Nick's expression filled with relief, resignation, and hope. I love you too, little queen, he kissed her. My conscience, my redemption, my beautiful, terrifying mate who will certainly be the death of me. He drew her toward the chamber. Tomorrow, we face political disaster. His voice softened. Tonight, I want to hold you and remember why those 3 nights were worth surviving. Celeste followed him inside. In the enormous bed where their story had begun as a threat, king and queen became only Nick and Celeste. 2 wolves bound by fate, held together by choice. She had survived 3 nights to earn freedom. Then she used that freedom to choose him, not as prisoner, not property, not a broken Omega kept for pleasure, as equal, mate, queen. Together, they would burn down the world Nick built. From its ashes, they would create a realm neither could build alone, a place where strength mattered, but compassion mattered more. It would take years, perhaps decades. There would be failure, resistance, and blood. But Celeste had learned the truth about herself during those 3 nights. She was stronger than anyone believed, braver than she had imagined, and mercilessly determined when protecting wolves who could not protect themselves. She was Queen Celeste Skinner, and she was only beginning. Epilogue. 1 year later. The anniversary celebration was smaller than Nick wanted and larger than Celeste preferred. Like most of their reign, it was a compromise. They stood together inside the throne room as the first graduating class of the Crown Academy received teaching certificates. 32 Omegas had completed a year of intensive education. Soon, they would open schools throughout the territories. Schools where Omega pups would learn that designation did not determine worth. Amy Smith stood at the front. Her hands trembled around the certificate as Celeste pressed the official crown seal into the parchment. You did it, Celeste said quietly. After 8 years, you became the teacher you wanted to be. Because you remembered Subject 17 had a name. Tears moved down Amy's face. You remembered I had dreams. She held the certificate against her chest. I will teach every Omega pup that they are more than what the world tries to reduce them to. Her voice strengthened. That is how I will repay you. Then teach them well, Celeste said. After the ceremony, she found Nick on their private balcony watching sunset turn the territories gold. The population has declined another 3%, he said without greeting. Celeste slipped her hand into his. Voluntary incentives are helping, but not quickly enough, Nick continued. Some territories may face severe shortages within 10 years, and you are not demanding that I reopen the facilities. No, Nick drew her close. I learned that some problems offer no good solution. His eyes remained on the horizon. Only choices that are less terrible. He looked at her. Forcing omegas into sexual slavery to maintain numbers is worse than the decline itself. We will find another path. Immigration incentives, Nick said. Technology allowing smaller packs to maintain territory. Voluntary alliance marriages, Celeste smiled. Look at you. The monster solving problems without systematic oppression. I executed 4 alphas last month for retaliatory abuse, Nick reminded her. I remain adequately monstrous. Yes, she rested her head against him. But you are my monster. They watched the realm settle into twilight. During the past year, they had reformed labor laws, created placement appeals, opened schools, expanded medical rights, and challenged traditions older than either of them. The realm was not perfect. It never would be. But it was better, and better was enough to continue. Priscilla sent her monthly report, Celeste said. She identified 17 placements requiring intervention. Nick sighed. One is in Lynn Donovan's territory? Of course. She has tested every boundary for months. Then we correct her again, Celeste said simply. As many times as necessary until she understands my decrees are not suggestions. Nick kissed her temple. The goddess gave me a queen more ruthless than I am when defending her people. Not ruthless. Celeste looked at him, unwilling to treat suffering as an acceptable loss. Is there a difference? Yes, her answer held certainty. My severity comes from compassion, not convenience. I do not sacrifice powerless wolves because strategy demands it. She touched the moonstone ring. I sacrifice reputation, political influence, and sometimes peace between us to protect them. Her gaze returned to the territories. That is not ruthlessness. That is being the queen they deserve. Nick remained silent. Then he smiled, warmly. Nothing like the frozen expression of the king she had met at auction. You are right, he drew her closer. And every day, I am grateful you chose to stay. His voice softened. You accepted the power I offered and became exactly what this realm needed. He kissed her hair. A queen who remembers powerlessness and refuses to allow it to continue. Night spread over the territories. Celeste thought of the auction platform. 3 nights of hell. A bond that first felt like a curse. She had survived to earn her freedom. Then she used that freedom to free others, one decree at a time. One reformed policy at a time. One rescued Omega at a time. The work was slow, frustrating, never enough. But it was better than before. And beside the monster who had become her mate, Celeste finally understood the moon goddess's cruel